6 years after the divorce, they meet again. She, a single mother-to-be, and he, a millionaire CEO. Love is rekindled, secrets come to light, and their lives change forever. A story of overcoming, redemption, and love that will touch your heart. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment where you are watching from. The air conditioning in the Walmart buzzed steadily, trying to ease the sweltering heat of that March afternoon in New York. Sarah Johnson struggled to push the cart, her 7-month baby bump making every movement a small battle for balance. Her hands, calloused from long shifts at St. Mary's Hospital, held tightly to the shopping list written in the neat handwriting of Emily, her 12-year-old daughter. Newborn diapers, baby wipes, diaper rash cream. She murmured softly, checking off items as she navigated through the crowded aisles of baby products. The cart was already heavy with basic groceries, rice, beans, oil, milk, all purchased with the mathematical precision of someone who needed to stretch every penny of a nurse's salary until the end of the month. Sarah stopped in aisle 12, dedicated to baby care, and sighed. At 34, she never imagined she would be there alone for the second time, preparing for the arrival of another child without a father by her side. Her brown hair, tied up in a practical bun, was starting to escape the elastic due to the heat. She wore a light blue t-shirt that barely concealed the volume of her belly, and a faded pair of jeans that had been her unofficial uniform during her days off since the beginning of her pregnancy. It was then that she felt it. That familiar tingling at the nape of her neck, the unmistakable sensation of being watched. She turned slowly, and the world seemed to stop. Rafael Mendoza stood just 3 meters away, holding a pack of diapers as if it were the most normal thing in the world. But nothing was normal about that moment. His dark brown eyes, which she knew as well as her own hands, were wide with shock. His black hair, now with a few silver strands at the temples that he didn't have 6 years ago, was perfectly styled. He wore an impeccable navy suit, even though it was Saturday afternoon, with a white dress shirt without a tie that cost more than her monthly salary. "Sarah?" His voice came out hoarse, as if he were seeing a ghost. She swallowed hard, feeling the baby move restlessly in her belly, as if it too sensed the tension in the air. "Rafael." It wasn't a question. It was a statement loaded with 6 years of hurt, anger, longing, and a pain she thought she had overcome. They stood there, surrounded by the smell of cleaning products and the constant murmur of other shoppers, like two statues that had come to life at the most inconvenient moment possible. The air between them felt electrified, charged with memories they both tried to keep buried. "You're..." He looked at her belly, unable to finish the sentence. "Pregnant. Yes." Sarah lifted her chin with that fierce dignity he remembered so well. "Congratulations. Your powers of observation remain sharp." Rafael closed his eyes for a second, as if gathering courage for what would come next. When he opened them again, there was a determination there that she didn't expect. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to... I didn't expect..." He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture she recalled from their married days. "How are you?" The simple question carried the weight of years of silence. Sarah felt a wave of confusing emotions, anger that he showed up just now when she was most vulnerable, sadness to see him so successful while she struggled to pay the bills, and something dangerous she preferred not to name. "Fine." The answer came out dry, automatic. "And you? From the suit, I imagine things have improved." Rafael looked at his own clothes as if he had forgotten what he was wearing. Yes, things have changed." He hesitated. "Sarah, about what happened between us." "No." She raised her hand, interrupting him. "Not here. Not now." The silence stretched between them, filled only by the distant sound of a baby crying somewhere in the supermarket. Sarah took the opportunity to study him discreetly. Raphael had become exactly the man she always knew he would be. Successful, elegant, with that air of natural authority that drew glances wherever he went. But there was something in his eyes, a subtle sadness, that hadn't existed when they were young. "The baby," he started again, his voice lower. "Is it from Jake?" Sarah didn't need to explain who Jake was. The name came out bitter from her mouth. Or rather, it was. He decided that fatherhood didn't fit his plans when he found out about the pregnancy. Raphael's expression hardened instantly. "He abandoned you? Just like you did to me." The words slipped out before she could count to 10, and she immediately regretted it. It wasn't fair to throw the past in his face like that, in the middle of a supermarket, but the pain was still there, throbbing like a poorly healed wound. Raphael recoiled as if he had been slapped. "Sarah, I never—" "Mum, I found the chocolate powder!" A girl's high-pitched voice sliced through the tension like a blade. Emily came running down the aisle, holding a jar of chocolate powder, her curly hair bouncing with each step. She stopped abruptly upon seeing the expression on her mother's face and the unfamiliar man standing there. "Isa." Sarah forced a smile, trying to hide the whirlwind of emotions. "Come here, honey." Emily approached with the natural suspicion of a pre-teen who had learned early to protect her mother. Her dark eyes, so similar to her mother's, scrutinized Raphael from head to toe with the brutal honesty of children. "Hi," she said, polite but cautious. Raphael looked at the girl, and Sarah saw the exact moment he recognized the resemblance. Emily had been born 2 years after their marriage ended, finished, the result of Marina's first serious relationship after the divorce. "Hello," Ryan replied, his voice suddenly gentle. "You must be Emily." The girl frowned. "How do you know my name?" Marina felt her heart race. "Isa, this is Ryan. We knew each other a long time ago." "Nice to meet you, Emily." Ryan crouched down to be at the girl's level, a gesture that caught Marina completely off guard. "Your mum talked a lot about you." "She did." Emily looked between the two adults, her sharp intelligence picking up on the nuances of the conversation. "Did you date?" "We were married," Marina replied before Ryan could speak, deciding that honesty was the best policy. "A long time ago." Emily processed the information with the seriousness of a miniature adult. "And now you're friends?" The simple question carried so much weight that Marina didn't know how to respond. She looked at Ryan and saw the same uncertainty reflected in his eyes. "We're talking about it," Ryan replied diplomatically. "A store." Employee passed by, pushing a restocking cart, reminding everyone where they were. Marina glanced at the cart, still half empty, and sighed. "We need to finish shopping," she said, more to herself than to the others. "Let me help." Ryan stood up, and before she could protest, was already pushing the heavy cart. "What's left on the list?" Marina wanted to say no, wanted to send him away before his presence further disrupted the carefully organized life she had built. But Emily was already walking alongside Ryan, pointing out items on the shelves, and she found herself following the two, feeling, strangely, like a spectator in her own life. "Mum needs prenatal vitamins," Emily was explaining to Ryan with all the seriousness in the world. "And they're expensive, so she always buys the generic ones." "Isa!" Marina scolded, embarrassed. Ryan stopped and turned to her. "Are you taking enough vitamins?" "I'm fine, thanks." "I didn't ask if you were fine. I asked about the vitamins." His tone was the same as when they discussed money at the end of their marriage, concerned but authoritative, as if she were incapable of taking care of herself. Marina felt the familiar anger rising. "I can take care of myself, Ryan. I learned that after you left. I didn't leave, you kicked me out." The words hung in the air between them, laden with a truth they had both avoided for years. Emily looked from one to the other, her eyes wide. "Are you going to fight?" she asked, her voice small. Marina took a deep breath, remembering where she was and in front of whom. "No, sweetheart, we're not going to fight." Ryan ran a hand through his hair again. "I'm sorry. You're right. It's none of my business." They finished shopping in a tense silence, punctuated only by Emily's occasional comments about products or prices. At the checkout, Ryan discreetly paid for everything before Marina could protest, ignoring her furious whispered arguments. In the parking lot, as they loaded the bags into her white Honda Civic, a 10-year-old car that made concerning noises, Ryan finally broke the silence. "Marina, I know I don't have the right to ask, but are you really okay? Financially? Emotionally?" She stopped organizing the bags and looked at him. "Why does it matter now?" "Because it never stopped mattering." The sincerity in his voice caught her off guard. Marina felt tears burning behind her eyes and fought to hold them back. "We're fine," she finally said. "We manage. I know you manage. You've always been strong." He hesitated. "But you don't have to go through this alone." Marina slammed the trunk shut with more force than necessary. "Yes, we do. That's how it works when you're abandoned twice. I never wanted to abandon you." The confession came out low, almost lost in the distant noise of the highway. Marina turned to him, ready for a sharp response, but the expression on his face stopped her. "Then why did you leave?" The question came out more vulnerable than she intended. Before Ryan could answer, Emily appeared beside them, holding the doll she always took on outings. "Mum, is the baby kicking?" Marina placed her hand on her belly, where the little being inside seemed to be reacting to all the emotional tension. "Yes, sweetheart. I think he knows when I get nervous." Ryan looked at her belly with an expression Marina couldn't decipher. "Can I?" She should have said no. She should have gotten in the car and driven away, leaving the past where it belonged, but something in his expression, a mix of curiosity and nostalgia, made her hesitate. "Please," he insisted, his voice hoarse. Against all good sense, Marina nodded. Ryan brought his hand to her belly, his fingers touching the fabric of her shirt with a reverent delicacy. In that moment, the baby kicked strongly, as if greeting the visitor. Ryan smiled, the first genuine smile she had seen since their reunion, and for a moment, Marina felt transported back in time to when they dreamed of having children together. "He's strong," Ryan murmured. "She," Marina corrected automatically. "It's a girl." Something passed through his eyes, too quick for her to interpret. A girl. They stayed like that for a few seconds, connected by the life growing between them, until Marina realized the intimacy of the moment and pulled away. "We have to go," she said, avoiding looking him in the eyes. "Of course." Ryan stepped back, returning to a formal posture. "It was good to see you both." Marina opened the car door for Emily to get in, then turned to him one last time. "Ryan?" "Yes?" "Don't show up in my life again just to leave afterward. I couldn't handle it, and neither could Emily." He stared at her for a long moment, as if memorizing every detail of her face. "I'm not going anywhere, Marina. Not this time." Before she could respond, Ryan walked away. In the direction of a black BMW that cost more than her house, Sarah got into the car with trembling hands, started the engine, and left the parking lot without looking back. But in the rearview mirror, she could see that he remained parked next to the car, watching her drive away. And for the first time in 6 years, Sarah allowed herself to think that maybe, just maybe, fate had different plans for them. Monday arrived with the fine, persistent rain that always accompanied the autumn in New York. Sarah got off the bus at the corner of Vergero Street, pulling the hood of her coat over her wet head, and walked 2 blocks to Joe's Bakery, where she bought whole grain bread every morning before her 7 o'clock shift. It was a sacred routine, established 3 years ago, since she moved into the apartment in City Heights and needed to find an efficient route between home and work. The nearly 8-month baby bump made each step more difficult, especially with the weight of the nursing bag and the lunchbox that Emily had prepared the night before. The 12-year-old cooked better than many adults, a skill she developed out of necessity when Sarah worked double shifts. "Good morning, Mrs. Johnson." Joe waved from behind the counter, his glasses fogged up by the steam from the warm bread. "The usual?" "Good morning, Joe. That would be great." Sarah smiled, appreciating the comforting familiarity of the routine. "And 2 sweet rolls for Emily. She has a math test today." While waiting, she leaned against the worn wooden counter and discreetly massaged her back. The baby, she had decided to name her Marina Luisa in honor of her own mother, was particularly active that morning, as if she knew she would be born soon. It was then that the doorbell rang, and she felt that familiar tingling at the nape of her neck. "Good morning." The deep, familiar voice made her heart race. Sarah turned slowly, finding Ryan standing at the entrance, swinging a wet umbrella. He wore a grey overcoat over a black suit, raindrops still glistening in his hair. He looked completely out of place in that simple environment, like an executive who had lost his way to an important meeting. "Ryan!" She couldn't hide the surprise in her voice. "What are you doing here?" He hesitated for a fraction of a second, as if caught off guard. "I was passing through the area for a meeting and remembered you mentioned this bakery at the supermarket." Sarah frowned. "I didn't mention any bakery at the supermarket." "No?" Ryan blushed slightly. "It must have been intuition then." Joe looked between the two with the natural curiosity of someone who knows all the regular customers. "Would you like something?" "A coffee, please, and Ryan looked at Sarah. "What do you recommend?" "Sugar bread," she replied automatically, still processing the impossible coincidence. "But that doesn't explain how you knew I came here." Ryan accepted the steaming coffee from Joe's hands and stepped closer to her. Up close, Sarah could smell the scent of the men's cologne he always wore, mixed with the smell of rain and coffee. "All right, you caught me," he admitted, his voice low. "I may have asked a few people where you usually have coffee in the morning." "What people?" The distrust in her voice was palpable. "Colleagues from the hospital." Discreetly. Sarah felt a wave of irritation rising. "Are you investigating me?" "It's not an investigation. It's genuine interest. It's an invasion of privacy." They stared at each other in tense silence, while Joe pretended to be very busy organizing the bread in the display. Sarah grabbed her bag with the bread and headed for the door, but Ryan caught up with her before she could leave. "Sarah, wait!" She stopped, but didn't turn around. "What do you want, Ryan?" "To talk. 5 minutes." "I don't have 5 minutes. I need to be at the hospital in 40 minutes, and traffic is impossible with the rain." "Then let me give you a ride." Sarah turned to face him, incredulous. "Are you crazy?" "I'm trying to be helpful." "You're being invasive." Ryan sighed, running his hand through his wet hair. "I know I showed up out of nowhere in your life and that you have every right to be suspicious. But I can't pretend that encounter at the supermarket didn't happen. I can't pretend I don't think about you and Emily every day since then." His words caught Sarah off guard. She had spent the whole week trying to convince herself that the encounter meant nothing, that it was just an unfortunate coincidence that would soon be forgotten. But the truth was, she also couldn't stop thinking about him. "Ryan, a ride to the hospital, that's all I'm asking." Sarah looked through the bakery window. The rain was heavier now, and the idea of facing 2 crowded buses with her heavy belly was not appealing at all. "All right," she finally said, "but only because it's raining." The smile that lit up his face was like a punch to the stomach. Sarah remembered when that smile used to be just for her. The black BMW was parked a few meters from the bakery, its dark windows reflecting the lights of the grey morning. Ryan opened the passenger door for her, a gesture he used to do when they were married, and that now felt laden with nostalgia. The car interior was luxurious and quiet, a stark contrast to the noisy Honda Civic she drove. Sarah settled into the leather seat, trying to ignore how comfortable it felt to be there. "St. Mary's Hospital?" Ryan asked, starting the engine. "How do you know where I work?" But as soon as the question left her lips, Sarah remembered. "The people you asked, discreetly." "Sarah, I can explain." "You don't need to explain. Just take me to work and end this story." They drove in silence through the wet streets of New York, the sound of the rain on the windshield filling the space between them. Sarah tried not to notice the skill with which he navigated through the chaotic traffic, or the familiarity with which his fingers drummed on the steering wheel when they stopped at traffic lights, a nervous tic he had always had. "How is Emily?" Ryan asked when they stopped at a particularly long red light. "Why do you want to know?" "Because she's an amazing girl, and because it's important to you." Sarah studied his profile, searching for signs of insincerity. "She's fine. Nervous about the math test today, but she always gets nervous about math. She looks a lot like you. Everyone says that. It's true. The same eyes, the same determination." He hesitated. "The same way she furrows her brow when she's suspicious." Despite herself, Sarah almost smiled. "She's smarter than I was at her age." "That's impossible. You've always been the smartest person I—" "No." His words brought back a flood of memories, late nights studying together in college, him always saying she was brighter than any professor. Sarah forced herself to focus on the present. "Things have changed, Ryan. I've changed. I've changed too." She looked at him, the impeccable suit, the expensive car, the confident posture, and shook her head. "You've become exactly who you always wanted to be. Rich, successful, important. Empty," he added quietly. The admission was so unexpected that Sarah didn't know how to respond. They arrived at the hospital before she found her words, and Ryan parked in the visitor's spot. "Thanks for the ride," Sarah said, already opening the door. "Sarah." He lightly held her arm. "Can I pick you up after your shift?" "No." "Please, just to make sure you get home safely. I've been getting home for 3 years without your help. I know, but now you're 8 months pregnant and what?" Her voice rose. "Am I incapable of taking care of myself because I'm pregnant? It's not that. It's just that I worry about you." "You don't have the right to worry about us." Ryan recoiled as if he had been slapped. Sarah got out of the car and slammed the door harder than she intended, but when she looked back, she saw he was still there, watching her enter the hospital. The shift was long and difficult. Sarah worked in pediatrics, where she always felt more comfortable, caring for children with pneumonia, ear infections, and the little accidents common in childhood. But today, her mind was divided between her patients and the morning conversation with Ryan. During her lunch break, she sat in the break room with her lunchbox, rice, beans, grilled chicken and salad that Emily had prepared, and tried to focus on a pediatric nursing book, but the words jumbled on the page. "Are you okay?" Claudia, her co-worker for 2 years, sat down next to her. "You're quieter than usual today." Sarah looked at her friend, a 45-year-old woman divorced with 3 teenage children. If anyone would understand her situation, it would be Claudia. "I ran into my ex-husband over the weekend," she finally said. "Emily's father?" "No, the other one. The first." Claudia raised her eyebrows. "The rich one?" Sarah nodded. She had told Claudia about Ryan only once, during a particularly tough night shift, when she was 5 months pregnant and feeling especially lonely. "And? He showed up this morning at the coffee shop where I go, by coincidence." "Coincidence, huh?" Claudia smiled ironically. "And what did he want?" "I don't know. To talk, according to him. He gave me a ride here." Claudia chewed thoughtfully on her salad. "And how did you feel?" It was a simple question, but Sarah realized she hadn't allowed herself to really process the answer. How had she felt? Confused, she admitted, annoyed that he just showed up out of nowhere, worried about what he wants, but also, I also felt protected for the first time in months. The confession came out quietly, almost embarrassed. And that scares me. Claudia nodded in understanding. Do you want advice from someone who's been through this? I do. A man who comes back into your life after years doesn't do it by accident. He wants something. It could be you. It could be redemption. It could be curiosity. But whatever it is, you need to figure it out before you get emotionally involved. Claudia's words echoed in Sarah's mind for the rest of the shift. At 6 in the evening, when she walked out the main door of the hospital, she was determined to follow her normal routine, take the bus, pick up Emily from the neighbor's school who looked after her after hours, make dinner, help with homework. But Ryan was there, leaning against the BMW, waiting. I told you I didn't need it, she said as she approached, and I told you I worry about you. He opened the passenger door again. How was your shift? Sarah hesitated. She was tired, her feet hurt, and the thought of facing 2 crowded buses during rush hour really wasn't appealing. Difficult, she replied, getting into the car. A 3-year-old with severe pneumonia. We had to transfer her to the ICU. Ryan started the car and adjusted the air conditioning. Is she going to be okay? Probably, but it's always scary when there's so little. They drove toward Emily's school, and Sarah allowed herself to relax slightly in the comfortable seat. Ryan played soft classical music, something he always did when he noticed she was tense. You still listen to Vivaldi, she remarked. Some habits never change. Others change completely. Ryan glanced at her quickly before returning his eyes to the traffic. Like what? You driving to the east side, for example. The Ryan I knew would never leave the South Zone. Maybe you didn't know that Ryan as well as you thought. His response caught her off guard. Marina was ready for a discussion about privilege and class prejudice, not for a reflection on the limitations of their mutual understanding in their relationship. Maybe not, she admitted. They arrived at Emily's school, a small but well-kept public school, and Sarah got out to pick up her daughter. When she returned, Emily came running behind her, the backpack bouncing on her back. Hi, Ryan! The girl waved excitedly when she saw who was driving. Mum didn't tell me you were picking us up. I didn't know, Sarah murmured, realizing too late that she had fallen into an emotional trap. How was the math test? Ryan asked as Emily settled into the back seat. Difficult, but I think I did well. Ms. Rosa said you brought sweet rolls for me this morning. The girl looked at her mother with curiosity. Ryan just happened to stop by the bakery, Sarah explained, avoiding looking at him. What a nice coincidence, Emily smiled. Can you come by more often? This morning's coffee was more interesting today. Ryan laughed, a genuine sound that Sarah hadn't heard in years. If your mum lets me. Mum? Emily leaned forward, resting her chin on the front seat. Can I? Sarah found herself caught between her daughter's enthusiasm and her own reservations. We'll see, Isa. The rest of the drive to their apartment was filled with lively conversation between Ryan and Emily. He asked about her favorite subjects, the books she was reading, and her plans for the school holidays. Sarah listened, fascinated despite herself, as he talked to Emily, not with the condescension that many adults used with children, but as if she were a person with valid and interesting opinions. When they arrived at the housing complex where they lived, Sarah saw Ryan absorbing the details, the 5-story beige buildings, the clothes drying on balconies, the children playing in the common area, despite the drizzle. There was no judgment in his expression, just genuine curiosity. Thanks for the ride, Sarah said when he parked. Can I come up just to see where you live?" The question caught her completely off guard. "Ryan, please, Mom." Emily was already getting out of the car. "I want to show him my drawings." Sarah found herself cornered again. All right, but just for a few minutes. Their apartment was on the 3rd floor, and they climbed the concrete stairs that echoed with their steps. Sarah opened the door to the 2-bedroom apartment, small but impeccably clean and organized. Ryan entered slowly, as if he were stepping onto sacred ground. The living room was small but cozy, with a 2-seater sofa covered by a colorful blanket that Sarah's mother had knitted before she passed away. The walls were decorated with Emily's drawings and photos of the two of them at various moments: birthdays, graduations, outings in the park. "It's small," Sarah said, suddenly embarrassed. "It's perfect," Ryan replied, and from the sincerity in his voice, she believed he meant it. Emily disappeared into her room and returned with a folder full of drawings, which she spread out on the small kitchen table. Ryan sat in the plastic chair and examined each drawing with genuine attention, asking questions about colors, techniques, and inspirations. Sarah made coffee and watched their interaction, feeling something dangerous stirring in her chest. There was a naturalness there that frightened her, as if Ryan had always been a part of their lives. "This one is beautiful," Ryan said, holding up a drawing of a family, a woman, a girl, and a baby. "Who are they?" "That's us," Emily replied naturally. "Me, my mum, and my little sister, who's going to be born. I drew it when Mum found out it was going to be a girl." Sarah saw Ryan studying the drawing with an intensity that made her swallow hard. There was something in his expression that she couldn't decipher. "It's going to be a beautiful family," he finally said, handing the drawing back to Emily. After that, he politely said goodbye, thanking her for the coffee and complimenting Emily's drawings once again. Sarah walked him to the door, where he stopped and turned to her. "Thank you for letting me in," he said. "It means a lot." "It was just coffee, Ryan." "No, it was much more than that." Before she could respond, he was already going down the stairs. Sarah stood at the door, watching him leave until Emily appeared by her side. "I like him." "Mom," the girl said. "I know, sweetheart." "Do you like him too?" It was a child's question, direct and straightforward. Sarah looked at her daughter, seeing the cautious hope in her dark eyes. "It's complicated, Issa." "Why?" "Because adults sometimes make things complicated." Emily frowned, clearly dissatisfied with the answer. "He seems nice, and he likes you." "How do you know?" "By the way he looks at you. It's the same way Isabella's dad looks at her mom at school." Her daughter's observation caught Sarah completely off guard. She hadn't realized how Ryan looked at her, too focused on protecting her own heart. That night, after Emily went to bed, Sarah sat in the small living room, her hands resting on her belly where the baby was gently moving. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to think about the future beyond the imminent birth. And for the first time in 6 years, Ryan Mendoza was in that future. That scared her more than anything else. Sunday arrived with a shy sun that finally managed to break through the clouds that had covered New York for a week. Sarah woke up to Emily gently shaking her shoulder, a habit the girl had developed since her mother entered her 8th month of pregnancy, always checking if she was okay before starting the day. "Mom, did you forget today is Sunday at the park?" Emily was already dressed in a Yankees t-shirt, a heritage from her biological father, and denim shorts, her curly hair tied in 2 pigtails. "Sarah." She groaned softly, feeling the weight of her belly and the back pain that had intensified in recent weeks. Central Park was a tradition for them on Sundays, when Sarah wasn't on call. Emily brought along the worn-out, soccer ball, and practiced dribbling by herself while Sarah sat in the shade of a tree, reading or simply watching her daughter play. "Of course I didn't forget, sweetheart," Sarah lied, forcing herself to get out of bed. "Just let me take a shower and have some coffee." An hour later, they were at the bus stop when Sarah saw the black BMW approaching. Her heart raced, a mix of irritation and something she didn't want to name. "Him again," she murmured to herself. Ryan parked the car and got out, wearing dark jeans and a white polo shirt, a more casual version of the stylish man she knew. He looked younger this way, more like the Ryan she had loved in college. "What a coincidence," he said, approaching with that smile that always made her stomach churn. "Coincidence?" Sarah crossed her arms over her belly. "Ryan, you're following me." "Ryan!" Emily ran to greet him, the soccer ball tucked under her arm. "Are you going to the park too?" He looked at Sarah, a silent plea in his eyes. "If you let me." "Mom, please?" Emily made that face that Sarah could never resist. "He can play soccer with me." "You can't anymore because of the baby." Sarah felt cornered. It was true that she could no longer run after Emily in the park, and she watched her daughter play alone every Sunday with a pang of guilt in her chest. "All right," she finally conceded, "but no interrogations about our life." "I promise." Ryan raised his right hand, as if making a solemn oath, eliciting a laugh from Emily. The park was filled with families enjoying the sunny Sunday. Ryan parked near the main entrance, and Sarah couldn't help but notice the curious looks they received. Her, clearly pregnant and tired. Him, obviously successful. And Emily, running between the two with the boundless energy of a 12-year-old. "Where do you usually go?" Ryan asked as they walked along the shaded paths of the park. "Over there." Emily pointed to a wide lawn near the lake. "Mum sits under that tree, and I kick the ball over there." Ryan looked at the spot, and then at Sarah. "You sit alone while she plays." "I like to watch," Sarah replied defensively. "And I don't have the energy to run anymore." "That's not what I meant." They settled under the cool shade of the tree, Sarah sinking onto the wooden bench with a sigh of relief. Ryan took off his sneakers and socks, rolled up his pant legs, and joined Emily on the lawn. Sarah watched, fascinated, as he taught Emily some dribbling skills. There was a patience in him that she hadn't expected, a capacity to connect with the girl in a way that felt natural and spontaneous. Emily laughed loudly when she managed to dribble the ball between his legs, and Ryan celebrated each small victory as if it were a goal in a World Cup final. "Mom, did you see?" Emily shouted when she managed to control the ball on her chest. "Ryan taught me." Sarah waved, feeling something dangerous forming in her chest. It was too easy to imagine a life like that. Sundays in the park, a complete family, someone to share the responsibilities and joys of motherhood. Too dangerous. After an hour of playing, Ryan approached the bench, sweaty and smiling. "She's good. She has natural talent." "Her dad played soccer in college," Sarah commented, immediately regretting mentioning her ex-husband. "Oh." Ryan's expression shifted slightly. "Do you still keep in touch?" "Occasionally. He has a new family now. Emily is just a responsibility he visits during the holidays." Ryan sat on the grass next to the bench, watching Emily practice alone a few meters away. "Does she miss him?" "Sometimes, but she's resilient. Like her mother." Sarah stared at him. "What do you mean by that?" "You've always been the strongest person I've known, Sarah. Even when we were young, even when things got tough between us." It was the first time he directly mentioned the end of their marriage. Sarah felt her heart race. "Strength is sometimes just a disguise for despair," she said softly. "And sometimes it's just strength." They fell silent, watching Emily kick the ball toward a tree that served as an improvised goalpost. The sun was stronger now, and Sarah felt beads of sweat forming on her forehead. "Sarah," Ryan said suddenly, his voice more serious, "I need to tell you something." Something in his tone made her sit up straighter on the bench. "What?" "I'm not appearing in your life by chance." Her heart sank. "What do you mean?" Ryan ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she recognized as a sign of extreme nervousness. "My company. We supply medical equipment to various hospitals in the city, including St. Mary's." Sarah felt the world spinning around her. And when I saw your name on the employee list a few months ago, I started keeping an eye on you." "Keeping an eye?" Her voice came out dangerously low, not in an invasive way, just making sure you were okay, that you didn't need anything. Sarah stood up from the bench so quickly that she felt dizzy. "You've been watching me." "It's not surveillance, Sarah, it's—" "What is it, Ryan?" She turned to face him, her voice rising. "Is it obsession? Is it control? What is it?" Emily stopped playing soccer and looked in their direction, sensing the tension in the air. Ryan stood up too, his hands raised in a calming gesture. "It's genuine concern for someone I love." His words fell like a bomb between them. Sarah stepped back, her hands trembling. "You don't know me. You don't know what I need." "Mom, Ryan, you don't even know me anymore. I never stopped loving you." "Stop." She raised her hand. "Just stop." "Sarah." "Mom?" Emily approached, the ball under her arm, her worried eyes darting between the two adults. "Are you guys fighting?" Sarah took a deep breath, trying to control the anger and panic rising in her throat. "No, sweetheart, just talking." But Emily wasn't foolish. She looked at Ryan with an expression Sarah had never seen before, disappointment mixed with fierce protectiveness. "You made my mum sad," the girl said, her voice small but firm. Ryan crouched down to her level. "I didn't mean to, Emily, I just—" "You're just like the others," Emily interrupted. "You show up, pretend to care, and then leave us sad." The girl's accusation hit Ryan like a punch to the gut. Sarah saw the pain flash in his eyes, and for a moment she almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "Let's go, Em," Sarah said, taking her daughter's hand. "Sarah, please, let me explain properly." "There's nothing to explain. You invaded our privacy. You broke our trust." She paused and stared at him, "just like you did 6 years ago." The reference to the past was deliberate and cruel, and Sarah saw that she hit the mark. Ryan paled. "I didn't break your trust 6 years ago." "No? Then how do you call lying about money, about debts, about your family interfering in our lives? I tried to protect you. You tried to control me, just like you're trying to do now." They were shouting now, drawing curious glances from other families in the park. Emily started to cry softly, but enough for Sarah to realize where they were and what they were doing. "Let's go," she repeated, quieter this time. "How are you going to get back?" Ryan asked. "I brought you." Sarah looked around, realizing too late that she was trapped. Without his car, she would have to call an Uber or face 2 bus rides with Emily. Crying and her 8 months pregnant. "We'll manage," she said, too proud to accept his help now. "Sarah, don't be stubborn. Let me at least take you home." "No." "Mum," Emily tugged at her hand, "I'm tired, and the sun is really strong." Sarah looked at her daughter, really tired, with red eyes from crying, and felt her resolve waver. That was what she hated about the whole situation. Ryan always showed up when she was vulnerable, when she had no way to refuse help without hurting Emily. "Fine," she finally conceded, "but just until home, and then disappear from our lives." The ride back was tense and silent. Emily slept in the back seat, emotionally drained. Ryan drove with excessive attention to the traffic, as if he were trying to find the right words. Sarah stared out the window, watching the city pass by, trying to ignore the familiar scent of his cologne that always made her nostalgic. When they arrived at the building, Sarah quickly got out and went to get Emily, who was still asleep. "Let me help," Ryan offered. "No need." But Emily was too heavy for Sarah to carry up to the third floor in her current state. Ryan simply picked her up, ignoring her protests, and climbed the stairs in silence. Inside the apartment, he laid Emily down on the sofa and turned to Sarah. "I need to go," he said. "But before I do, I want you to know that I never meant to hurt you. Not today, not 6 years ago." Sarah was leaning against the wall, exhausted. "But you did hurt me." "I know, and I'm sorry." She studied him for a moment, the tense posture, the genuinely regretful expression, the way he looked at Emily, sleeping on the sofa as if she were something precious he had lost the right to protect. "Ryan," she finally said, "why did you really come back into our lives?" He hesitated, as if deciding between the truth and an edited version of it. "Because 6 years ago, I made the worst choice of my life. I let you go instead of fighting for us, and since then, every day I regret it. You didn't let me go. I kicked you out. Because I gave you reasons to do that." His confession was too simple and too complicated at the same time. Sarah felt tears burning behind her eyes. "That doesn't change anything, Ryan. You still invaded our privacy. You still lied about how you found us." "You're right, and I will stop." "Will you really?" He nodded, but there was something in his eyes that made her suspicious. "But Sarah..." "What?" "If you need anything, please call me." He took a card from his pocket and left it on the kitchen table. "I promise I won't show up uninvited again." After he left, Sarah stood in the living room, looking at the card on the table and at Emily sleeping on the sofa. The girl's face was still stained with tears, and Sarah felt a wave of guilt wash over her. Maybe Ryan wasn't the only one hurting the people she loved. That night, after Emily woke up, had dinner, and went to bed, Sarah sat on the edge of her bed, Ryan's card in her hands. It was a simple, elegant card. Ryan Mendoza, CEO, Mendoza Tech Solutions, with just a cell phone number and an email. She thought about tearing it up, thought about throwing it in the trash and pretending the encounter in the park never happened. Instead, she tucked it away in the nightstand drawer next to the baby's ultrasounds and the letters her mother had written before she died. Some things were too important to throw away, even when they hurt. And Ryan Mendoza, for better or for worse, was still one of those things. On Monday, Sarah returned to her routine: bakery, bus, hospital. But this time Ryan didn't show up. Not on Tuesday, not on Wednesday. For an entire week he respected the boundaries. Sarah had promised not to show up uninvited. She should have felt relieved. Instead, she found herself searching for him in the places they had met, feeling an odd sense of emptiness when he wasn't there. This was exactly what she had tried to avoid. It was precisely why she needed to keep her distance from him, and it was exactly why she knew it was already too late. The Mendoza family conference room on the 32nd floor of the commercial building on Faria Lima was a monument to power and tradition. An imported mahogany table, Italian leather chairs, a panoramic view of the city stretching to the horizon. Ryan entered the room at 9 in the morning on a Thursday, knowing exactly why he had been summoned for this urgent family meeting. His mother, Catherine Johnson, sat at the head of the table, impeccable as always in her navy Chanel suit. At 65, she maintained the aristocratic posture she had cultivated since marrying the family patriarch 40 years ago. Her platinum hair was styled in a perfect bun, and her cold blue eyes studied Ryan with the same intensity she used to analyze investments. Beside her, his brothers Charles and Edward looked uncomfortable but determined. Charles, the eldest at 40, was the CFO of the family holding company. Edward, 2 years younger than Ryan, handled international operations. Both had married suitable women, heiresses from traditional New York families, and were raising children who attended the same clubs and schools they themselves had attended. "Sit down, Ryan," Catherine said, her voice carrying the natural authority of someone used to being obeyed. Ryan settled into the chair, crossing his legs with a calm he didn't feel. "Good morning to you all as well." "I'm not in the mood for sarcasm," his mother replied dryly. "We have a serious situation to discuss." Charles cleared his throat and slid a manila folder across the table. "Open this." Ryan hesitated for a moment before taking the folder. When he opened it, he felt the blood run cold in his veins. There were photographs, he and Sarah at the supermarket, at Joe's bakery, in the park. Sarah coming in and out of St. Mary's Hospital, Emily playing at school, their apartment in the East Side, even a photo of the old Honda Civic parked on the street. "What is this?" His voice came out quieter than he intended. "It's what happens when you decide to get involved with unsuitable people," Catherine replied coldly. "We hired a private investigator." Ryan slammed the folder shut, anger rising in waves. "You had Sarah investigated?" "We had the woman our son and heir is publicly involved with investigated," Edward spoke for the first time. "It's basic precaution. She is not a risky investment to be investigated, isn't she?" Charles leaned forward. "Then explain to me why a divorced nurse, pregnant by another man and living in public housing, would be a suitable choice for someone in your position." His brother's words were like daggers. Ryan stood up from the chair, his hands clenched into fists. "Watch what you say about her." "Sit down," Catherine ordered. "We're not done yet." Ryan remained standing, glaring at his mother. "If you hurt her in any way—" "We haven't hurt anyone, yet." The threat in her voice was subtle, but clear. "But we need you to understand the position you're putting the entire family in." Charles opened another folder and spread documents across the table. "The partners are worried, Ryan. There are rumors that you're losing focus, getting involved in personal scandals that could affect the company's image." "What scandals?" Ryan asked, though he already knew the answer. "A man in your position being seen with a clearly lower-class woman, pregnant by another man." Edward shook his head. "Do you understand how this appears to our clients, to society? It appears that I am a human being with feelings instead of a corporate robot." "It appears that you have questionable judgment," Catherine said dryly, "and questionable judgment in business can cost millions." Ryan looked at the 3 family members, feeling a deep sadness settle in his chest. It was the same conversation they had had 6 years ago when he and Sarah were newlyweds and she was still trying to finish nursing school. "You were the ones who destroyed my marriage with her the first time," he said quietly. "The mysterious doubts, the financial pressures, the advice on how a wife should behave. We saved you from a mistake that could have cost your career," Catherine replied without flinching. "And now you are about to make the same mistake again." "It's not a mistake. I love her." "Love doesn't pay the bills, Ryan," Charles said pragmatically. "And it doesn't sustain a company that employs 500 families." Ryan sat down again, suddenly exhausted. "What do you want from me?" Catherine smiled, a cold smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We want you to be smart, to think about the family, the company, your future." "And that means?" "That means you stop seeing this woman immediately," Edward said. "Publicly, at least." And what if I don't stop? The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken threats. Finally, Charles spoke. The partners are considering a motion of no confidence against your leadership. If it passes, you lose operational control of the company. Ryan felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. The company was his life, his legacy, everything he had worked for over the past 15 years. You wouldn't do that. We don't want to do that, Catherine corrected, but we will if necessary. And what if I choose Sarah anyway? Then you choose a life of mediocrity. Without the company, without the family money, without social connections. His mother studied him coldly. Are you willing to throw it all away for a woman who has already rejected you once? The question echoed in the silent room. Ryan thought about Sarah. The way she had rejected him in the park, the distrust in her eyes, the way she protected Emily like a lioness guarding her cub. I need time to think, he finally said. You have a week, Charles informed him. Next Thursday there's a board meeting. They will vote. Ryan stood up and walked to the window, looking at the city below. Somewhere down there, Sarah was working, caring for patients, struggling to support her family alone. She knew nothing about this conversation, about the threats, about the investigation. And maybe that was for the best. There's a solution, Catherine said behind him. Ryan turned around. What? Patricia Almeida is back from Europe. She's single again. The name hit Ryan like a slap. Patricia had been his fiancée 5 years ago, a relationship arranged by their families that he had accepted at the time for convenience. She was everything his family expected. Wealthy, educated, socially connected, beautiful in a cold and perfect way. No. She still loves you, Ryan, and a marriage between you two would solve many problems. For you, not for me. For all of us, Edward insisted. Think about it. Financial stability, family approval, a wife who understands your world, a wife I don't love. You can learn to love, Catherine said pragmatically. Love is a luxury, Ryan. Responsibility is a necessity. Ryan looked at his mother, the woman who had raised him with an iron fist, who had shaped every aspect of his life since childhood, who had never shown affection without expecting something in return. How can you talk about love so easily when you've never shown any for us? The question came out harsher than he intended, but he was tired of pretending his family was functional. Catherine didn't blink. I show love through protection. Protection of our position, our future, our security. That is worth more than sentimentality. For you may be, for intelligent people. Ryan took a deep breath, feeling the weight of a lifetime of expectations and responsibilities pressing down on his shoulders. I will think about your proposal, he finally said. And what about the woman? Charles asked. I'll take care of that. Catherine stood up, smoothing her blazer. Ryan, I hope you make the right decision. For the family. And what if the right decision for me is different from the right decision for the family? Then you will discover what really matters to you, she replied, kissing his cheek with the coldness of a formal greeting. After everyone left, Ryan was alone in the conference room, looking at the photographs scattered across the table. Sarah laughing with Emily in the park. Sarah entering the hospital early in the morning, heavy with pregnancy, but determined in posture. Emily drawing at school, her tongue sticking out in concentration. A simple life, a real life, a life he wanted more than any professional success, but a life that would cost everything he had built. Ryan picked up his phone and dialed a number he knew by heart. Dr. Smith, it's Ryan Mendoza. I need to schedule an urgent appointment. No, it's not a medical emergency. It's about one of your patients, Sarah Johnson. A pause. Yes, I know you can't discuss patient cases, but I need to know if she and the baby are okay, if they need anything. Another pause, longer. I understand. Thank you anyway. Ryan hung up the phone and sat heavily in the chair. There were ways to help Sarah without her knowing, ways to ensure she and the children received the best medical care possible. But that meant lying to her again, and lying was exactly what had destroyed their marriage the first time. Ryan put the photographs in a folder and took it home, locking it in his private office. For the rest of the week, he avoided passing by places where he might run into Sarah, keeping the promise he had made. But every night, he drove to the east side and parked 2 blocks from her building, just to make sure the lights in the apartment were on, that they had arrived home safely. It was pathetic, and he knew it. But it was the only way to be close to her without breaking his word. And on Thursday, when his secretary informed him that Patricia Almeida was in the reception wanting to speak with him, Ryan knew the time for decisions had come. Patricia entered his office like a gust of expensive perfume and determination. At 32, she was exactly as he remembered. Tall, slim, blonde, with the cold beauty of a magazine model. She wore a black Armani dress that probably cost more than Sarah's monthly salary. "Ryan," she smiled, walking towards him with the confidence of someone who knew exactly her worth in the marriage market. "Patricia." He stood up politely but didn't move closer to greet her. "You haven't changed," she said, sitting in the leather chair across from his desk. "Still that serious and mysterious man I fell in love with. What do you want?" "Straight to the point. It's always been like this." She crossed her legs elegantly. "I want to talk about us." "There is no us, Patricia. You ended our engagement 5 years ago. Because I was young and foolish, because I thought I could find something better in Europe." She leaned forward. "I was wrong." Ryan studied her for a moment. Patricia was everything his family wanted for him. Suitable, predictable, secure. A marriage with her would solve all the political problems his relationship with Sarah had created. And now? Now I've grown up, I understand what's important in life. Stability, partnership, building something lasting. "Love?" Patricia laughed, a crystalline and cold sound. "Love is for teenagers, Ryan. We are adults. We can build something better than passion." "Like what?" "Mutual respect, shared goals, a harmonious social life." She paused. "Children who will grow up with all the advantages we can offer." The mention of children. Ryan thought about Emily, her drawings scattered across the Formica table. How she had slept on the small sofa after the day at the park. "Patricia, I know about the nurse," she calmly interrupted him. Ryan stiffened. "What?" "Sarah Johnson. Pregnant, divorced, 2 daughters." Patricia spoke the facts as if reading a shopping list. "Your family told me everything. Then you know why this conversation is unnecessary." "On the contrary, it's exactly why this conversation is necessary." Patricia stood up and walked to the window. "Ryan, you can play savior with this woman as much as you want, but in the end, you'll return to your world, to people like us." "People like us?" "People who understand responsibilities, who know that individual feelings are less important than family and social stability." Ryan felt nausea rising in his throat. "Are you suggesting I marry you and keep Sarah as, what, a mistress?" "I'm suggesting you be practical." Patricia turned to face him. "Marry me. Have the life you were always meant to have. And if you want to help this woman financially, discreetly, no one will oppose." The proposal was so cold, so calculating, that Ryan needed to sit down. "Did you hear what you just said?" "I heard the voice of reason." Ryan looked at Patricia. Beautiful, elegant, completely devoid of anything resembling genuine humanity. It was like looking into a mirror, reflecting everything he could become if he chose security over love. "Patricia, thank you for the offer, but no. Think carefully before you respond. Your family will never accept that, nurse. Never, and you know that. Maybe it's time I stop caring about what my family accepts. Patricia smiled, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. We'll see. After she left, Ryan was alone in his office, looking at the city through the window. Somewhere down below, Sarah was living her life, taking care of Emily, preparing for the baby's arrival. Unbeknownst to her, she had become the center of a war between his past and future. A war he needed to win, no matter the cost. It was early Friday morning when Sarah woke up with a sharp pain in her lower abdomen. The digital clock beside the bed read 3:47 a.m., and for a moment she stood still, trying to distinguish between normal pregnancy discomfort and something that could be concerning. The pain came again, stronger, radiating through her back. "Damn," she murmured softly, trying not to wake Emily, who was sleeping in the next room. Sarah got up slowly, leaning against the wall for balance. At 8.5 months pregnant, any sudden movement had become an exercise in patience and planning. She walked to the bathroom and felt a warm liquid trickling down her legs. Blood, panic surged up her throat like a cold wave. Sarah looked at herself in the bathroom mirror, pale, scared, her nightgown stained red. As a nurse, she knew that bleeding late in pregnancy could mean various things, from placenta previa to placental abruption. None of them were good. "Emily," she called, trying to keep her voice calm. "Wake up, sweetheart." Emily appeared in the bathroom doorway within seconds, her hair messy and her eyes still bleary with sleep. When she saw her mother and the blood, she fully woke up. "Mom, what happened?" "I need to go to the hospital, Emily. Now." Sarah took a deep breath, forcing herself to maintain the professional calm she had developed over the years. "Get Mrs. Smith's phone and call her. Tell her it's an emergency and that you'll stay with her until I get back." "But, Mom..." "Now, Emily, please." As Emily rushed to make the call, Sarah changed clothes with mechanical movements. Black sweatpants, a loose shirt, slip-on sneakers that she could put on without bending down. She grabbed her wallet, phone, and health insurance card. It was then that her eyes landed on Ryan's card, still kept in the nightstand drawer. For a moment, she hesitated. She had promised herself she wouldn't call him, that they would manage on their own, as they always had. But it was early morning, she was bleeding, and she needed to get to the hospital as quickly as possible. With trembling hands, she dialed his number. Ryan answered on the second ring, his voice alert despite the hour. "Sarah, what happened?" I'm bleeding. I need to go to the hospital." The words came out in gasps, as if admitting the problem aloud made it more real. "Where are you? I'm leaving now." "Ryan, you don't have to Sarah." His voice was firm, authoritative. "Where are you?" 20 minutes later, Ryan parked the car in front of her building. Sarah was waiting at the door, Emily beside her with a small backpack to spend the night at the neighbor's house. "Hi, Ryan," Emily said, as he got out to help Sarah into the car. There was genuine concern in the girl's voice. "Is Mom going to be okay?" Ryan knelt to be at her level, his large, comforting hands on the girl's small shoulders. "She will be. I'll take care of her, I promise." "Really promise?" "I promise." Emily nodded, satisfied with the seriousness of his response. "I trust you." The girl's simple words hit Ryan like a punch in the stomach. Trust was exactly what he had lost from Sarah, and now her daughter was placing a faith in him that he wasn't sure he deserved. During the drive to St. Mary's Hospital, Sarah remained silent, one hand on her belly, the other gripping the car seat every time a new wave of pain hit her. Ryan drove with controlled urgency, navigating the empty streets of New York's early morning with the skill of someone accustomed to corporate emergencies. "Sarah," he said when they stopped at a red light. "Talk to me." How are you feeling? Scared, she admitted softly. The baby. She was moving a lot yesterday, and now I don't feel anything. Ryan extended his hand and lightly touched hers. Everything will be all right. You don't know that. I do. Because you're strong, and the baby has the most determined mother in the world. Despite the pain and fear, Sarah felt a small smile form on her lips. You've always been good with words, and you've always been good at seeing through them. They arrived at the hospital in 15 minutes. Ryan parked in the emergency spot and went to get a wheelchair before Sarah could protest. In the emergency room, he spoke to the receptionist with the natural authority of someone used to being heard. Sarah Johnson, 34 weeks pregnant, presenting with vaginal bleeding, he said, the information coming out with medical precision. The attendant looked at him with curiosity. Are you... The baby's father, Ryan replied without hesitation. Sarah looked at him in surprise, but didn't correct him. Maybe because she was in too much pain, or maybe because it was easier than explaining their complicated situation to strangers. Within minutes, Sarah was being examined by Dr. Carla Mendez, an experienced obstetrician she recognized from the hospital corridors. Ryan remained in the waiting room, pacing back and forth like a genuinely expectant father. Mr. Mendoza, a nurse appeared after an hour that felt like days. Yes? He stood up immediately. Dr. Carla would like to speak with you. Ryan followed the nurse through the familiar corridors. He had been there several times during corporate meetings about equipment supply, but never as someone personally involved, never with his heart in his throat and his hands sweating from nerves. Dr. Carla was waiting outside Sarah's room, a serious expression on her face. She was a 50-year-old woman, grey hair tied in a practical bun, with the confident posture of someone who had spent decades caring for expectant mothers. Mr. Mendoza, I am Dr. Carla Mendez. How is she? And the baby? Can I be frank with you? Ryan felt his stomach drop. Please. Sarah had a small placental abruption. It's not serious at the moment, but we need to monitor her closely. The baby is fine, but we will keep her under observation for at least 48 hours. And if it gets worse? If it gets worse, we may need to perform an emergency cesarean. The baby is at 34 weeks. It's not ideal, but it's viable. Ryan took a deep breath, processing the information. Does she know? Yes, I explained everything to her. She is a strong woman, Mr. Mendoza. She is handling the situation well. Can I see her? Of course, room 312. Ryan went up 2 floors and found Sarah lying in the hospital bed, connected to monitors showing her and the baby's heart rates. She was awake, looking out the window where the sun was beginning to rise over New York. Hi, he said softly from the door. Hi. She turned to him, and Ryan saw that she had been crying. Thank you for coming. You don't have to thank me. He approached the bed. How are you feeling? Better. The pain stopped, and the baby is moving again. Sarah placed her hand on her belly. The doctor said you told her you were the father. Ryan blushed. Sorry. It was easier than explaining. It's okay. I understand. They sat in silence for a few minutes, listening to the rhythmic sounds of the monitors. Ryan sat in the chair beside the bed, watching her face in the soft morning light. Sarah looked small and vulnerable in the hospital bed, so different from the determined and independent woman he knew. Ryan, she said suddenly, can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you come back into our lives now? The real truth. Ryan knew this question would eventually come. He had rehearsed several answers in his mind, edited versions of the truth that sounded less desperate, less obsessive. But looking at Sarah there, vulnerable and honest, he decided she deserved the full truth. Because for the last 6 years, Every day, I regretted letting you go, because I built a business empire thinking it would make me forget you, and it only made me realize that success without you is empty." He hesitated. "And because when I saw your name on the hospital staff list a few months ago, I realized I finally had a chance to try to fix the worst mistake of my life." Sarah studied him for a long moment. "So you really knew I worked here before we ran into each other at the supermarket?" "I did, and it was intentional." "It was. And the other times? The bakery? The park?" Ryan sighed. "I asked people about your routine, discreetly." "That's stalking, Ryan." "I know, and I know it was wrong, but I was desperate to have a chance to talk to you, to explain what happened 6 years ago." Sarah closed her eyes, and for a moment Ryan thought she might send him away again. When she opened them, there were tears there. "You hurt us a lot, Ryan. Not just when we got married, but now too. Emily was very confused after that day in the park." "I know. And I'm sorry." "I'm sorry doesn't fix it, Ryan. Emily has already been abandoned by her own father. She doesn't need to be abandoned by you, too." Her words hit him like a punch to the stomach. "I'm not going to abandon you." "How can I be sure of that?" It was a fair question, and Ryan didn't have an answer that didn't sound like empty promises. How could he prove that this time would be different? How could he show that he had learned from the mistakes of the past? "You can't be sure," he admitted. "You can only give me a chance to prove it." "And what if I don't want to take that risk?" "Then I will respect your decision." "But Sarah—" He leaned forward. "I'm not asking you to trust me immediately. I'm asking you to let me be present for the birth of the baby. Baby, for when you need help, for the difficult moments that are still to come." Sarah stared at him for a long moment, and Ryan saw the conflict unfolding in her eyes. Fear versus hope, self-protection versus the possibility of not facing everything alone. "I need to think," she finally said. "That's fine. Take as long as you need." At that moment, the door opened and Dr. Smith entered for a new evaluation. She checked the monitors, examined Sarah, and made some notes in the chart. "How are her heart rates, doctor?" Ryan asked. The doctor looked at him with curiosity. "Do you have a medical background?" "No, but my company provides medical equipment. I've learned a few things along the way." "Ah, yes. Mendoza Tech Solutions?" Her expression changed. "We know your work well. Excellent equipment. Thank you." Dr. Smith finished the examination and turned to the two of them. "Everything is stable for now. We'll keep monitoring and see how it progresses." After she left, Sarah looked at Ryan with a different expression. "Does your company provide equipment for this hospital?" "For this and several others, yes." "Expensive equipment?" "Some, yes." Sarah processed the information in silence. "Ryan, I don't want special treatment because of your position. I don't want anyone to think that—" "No one will think anything. You're a patient like any other." "But I'm not, am I? Not when the CEO of the company that supplies millions in equipment is sitting next to my bed." Ryan noticed her concern and leaned forward. "Sarah, I promise that your medical situation has nothing to do with my business. Any care you receive is because you deserve it, not because of who I am." "How can I be sure?" "Because I know you, and I know that if you suspected for a second that you were receiving special treatment, you would leave this hospital immediately, even if it put your life and the baby's at risk." Despite everything, Sarah smiled. "You really know me. Some things don't change." The rest of the day passed slowly. Ryan stayed most of the time, only leaving to pick up Emily from school and bring her to visit her mother. The girl was relieved to see Sarah doing well and spent an hour talking about the science test she had taken. "Can Ryan stay for dinner when Mom comes home?" Emily asked as they prepared to leave. Sarah and Ryan exchanged glances, and he saw the hesitation in her eyes. "We'll see, Isa," Sarah replied diplomatically. "That means no, right?" "That means we'll talk about it when I'm feeling better." Ryan said goodbye in the late afternoon, promising to return the next day. But before leaving, he stopped at the door of the room. "Sarah?" "Yes?" "Thank you for calling me, for trusting me when you needed it." "It wasn't trust, Ryan. It was desperation." "Still, thank you." That night, Ryan couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the conversation with Sarah, about how she had questioned his motivations, about the vulnerability he had seen in her eyes. And he also thought about the board meeting that would take place the following Thursday, about the family ultimatum, about the pressure that was increasing every day. He needed to make a decision, and he needed to make it soon, before it was too late for all of them. Sunday morning arrived with a storm that made the hospital windows shake. Sarah had spent 2 days under observation, and the monitors finally showed stable signs for both her and the baby. The placental abruption had not worsened, and Dr. Smith was optimistic about discharging her on Monday morning. Ryan had spent the nights at home but arrived early every morning with coffee and pastries from Joe's Bakery, a routine that had established itself naturally, as if they were truly a couple expecting their first child. Sarah tried to ignore how comforting it was to have someone taking care of her, how nice it was not to face everything alone. It was 4:30 in the morning when she woke, up with a strong contraction. Unlike the Braxton Hicks contractions she had felt in the past weeks, this one was intense and defined, contracting her entire uterus like a fist closing. "Oh, crap," she murmured, placing her hands on her belly. The contraction passed and Sarah waited. Maybe it was just a scare, a reaction to the stress of the past few days. But 5 minutes later, another one came, stronger, and then another. Sarah pressed the nurse call button, her heart racing. At 34.5 weeks, the baby was still a bit early, but viable. As a nurse, she knew that many babies were born at this gestational age, without major complications, but as a mother, she felt the primal fear that something could go wrong. "Good morning, Sarah." Nurse Lucy entered the room with a sleepy smile. "How are you feeling?" "I think I'm going into labor." Lucy immediately approached, checking the monitors and asking some questions about the intensity and frequency of the contractions. Within 15 minutes, Dr. Smith was in the room, still in pajamas under her lab coat, examining Sarah with professional attention. "You're at 3 centimeters of dilation," the doctor announced. "It's real labor. We're going to transfer you to the labor and delivery room." "But she's too early," Sarah protested, even knowing there was no way to stop the process that had begun. 34.5 weeks is premature, but not dangerous. The baby has excellent chances of being perfectly healthy. As they prepared for the transfer, Sarah thought of Ryan. He had left his direct cell number with the nursing staff, asking to be notified of any changes in her condition. "Lucy," she called when another contraction passed. "Can you call Ryan? The number is in the chart." "Of course, dear," Ryan answered on the first ring, as if he had been awake waiting for the call. "Sarah?" "She's going into labor, Mr. Mendoza," Lucy said. "Do you want to come?" "I'm on my way now." 40 minutes later, Ryan rushed through the hallways of the hospital as if his own life depended on it. He found Sarah already settled in the labor room, breathing through another contraction, while a midwife monitored the baby's heartbeat. "How is she?" he asked Dr. Smith, who was checking the chart. "Progressing well. She's at 5 centimeters now, maybe another 2 hours." Ryan approached the bed, where Sarah was propped up on several pillows, her hair sticking to her forehead with sweat. "Hi," he said softly. "Hi." She tried to smile, but another contraction began. "Oh no, they're getting stronger." Ryan instinctively took her hand, and Sarah squeezed it tightly during the contraction. When it passed, She looked at him in surprise. Sorry, did I squeeze too hard? No, it's okay. He stroked the back of her hand with his thumb. Breathe with me, remember? Like you used to when we were married and you got nervous? Sarah stared at him for a moment. It was strange how he remembered the little details, the intimate gestures she thought he had forgotten. Inhale for 4 counts, hold for 2, exhale for 6, she murmured. That's right. They practiced breathing together during the next contractions, and Sarah found herself relaxing slightly in his presence. There was something comforting about not being alone, about having someone who knew her fears and how to calm her. Ryan, she said during a pause between contractions, I need to tell you something. What? Jake, the biological father of the baby. He called last night. Ryan immediately stiffened. What did he want? He said he changed his mind about fatherhood, that he wants to be present. And do you believe him? Sarah shook her head, exhausted. I don't know what to believe anymore. But he said he would come here today when he knows the baby is born. Sarah, you don't have to let that guy into the delivery room just because he decided to show up now. I know. But legally nothing. You decide who stays with you at this moment. A new contraction interrupted the conversation, more intense than the previous ones. Sarah squeezed Ryan's hand tightly, her eyes closing in concentration. Does it hurt a lot? He asked when it passed. It's different from the first time, she admitted. With Emily, I was younger, stronger. Now, oh my God, here comes another one. Ryan stayed by her side for the next 2 hours, holding her hand, helping her breathe, offering words of encouragement. There was a natural intimacy between them that surprised both of them, as if the 6 years of separation had vanished the moment she needed him. At 7:30 in the morning, Dr. Smith announced it was time to go to the delivery room. You're fully dilated, Sarah. We're going to have this baby. Ryan, Sarah held onto him as they began to move the stretcher. Do you want to come in with me? The question caught him completely off guard. Are you sure? I don't want to be alone. And I trust you. Her words were like a gift he hadn't expected to receive. I'll be with you. I promise. The delivery room was flooded with bright light and professional activity. Sarah was transferred to the delivery table, and Ryan, dressed in sterilized gowns, positioned himself at her head, holding her hand. Okay, Sarah. Dr. Smith positioned herself. On the next contraction, you're going to push. The baby is in a good position. The pushing was intense and quick. Sarah pushed with fierce determination, as if all her energy was focused on safely bringing her daughter into the world. Ryan whispered words of encouragement, amazed by her strength, by how her body knew exactly what to do. The head is coming, Dr. Smith announced. One more push, Sarah. And then, at 8:17, on a stormy Sunday morning, Sarah Johnson came into the world with a strong, indignant cry that filled the room with relief and joy. It's a perfect girl, the doctor smiled, lifting the baby for Sarah to see. Sarah began to cry, a mix of relief, exhaustion, and instant love. Is she okay? Is everything all right with her? She's perfect. A little small, but with good coloring and excellent reflexes. Ryan looked at the baby, small, red, with an astonishing dark head of hair, and felt something moving in his chest that he had never experienced before. It was love, but different from the love he felt for Sarah. It was instinctive protection, a primal desire to care for that defenseless little creature. She's beautiful, he said, his voice choked. Do you want to hold your daughter? Dr. Smith asked Sarah. Our daughter, Sarah automatically corrected, looking at Ryan. Do you want to hold our daughter? The correction was so natural that Sarah didn't even realize what she had said until the words came out. Ryan looked at her in surprise and something that could be hope. Can I? Of course. When the baby was placed in Sarah's arms, she immediately stopped crying and opened her huge dark eyes as if evaluating the world she had just arrived in. "Hi, Sarah Johnson," Sarah whispered. "I'm your mommy, and this here," she looked at Ryan, "is someone very important who already loves you very much." Ryan gently touched the baby's little face with a finger, marveling at the softness of her skin, at the perfection of her tiny fingers. "Hi, little one," he murmured. "Welcome to the world." It was in that moment of absolute intimacy that the door to the room opened, and Jake entered, still dressed in the clothes from the night before, ripped jeans, band t-shirt, smelling of cigarettes and beer. "I'm here," he announced, as if he were the protagonist of the situation. "Where's my daughter?" The atmosphere in the room changed instantly. Sarah stiffened in Ryan's arms, instinctively protecting the baby. The nurses exchanged uncomfortable glances. Dr. Smith frowned. "Who are you?" the doctor asked. "Jake Santos, biological father of the child." He spoke with Ryan clenched his fists in arrogance. "I came to get what's mine." "Nothing here is yours." Ryan stood up, placing himself between Jake and Sarah. "You abandoned them months ago." "And who are you, the godfather?" Jake laughed, an unpleasant sound. "Sarah, tell your little friend to get out of my way." "Jake, you can't come in here like this," Sarah said, her voice firm despite her exhaustion. "I just gave birth. That's exactly why I'm here, to see my daughter." "Your daughter?" Ryan took a step forward. "Where were you when Sarah got sick? Where were you when she needed help? Where were you when she couldn't afford the prenatal vitamins?" "Hey, calm down, man. It's not my fault she didn't tell me about her problems. Because you blocked her phone when you found out about the pregnancy." The tension in the room was becoming unbearable. The baby started to cry, sensing the stress in the atmosphere. Sarah tried to sit on the bed, still sore from the delivery. "Enough!" she said, her voice cutting through the argument. "Jake, you can see the baby, but not here, not now. I need to rest. She needs to be examined by the pediatricians." "Sarah," Ryan began. "And you?" She looked at him. "Thank you for staying with me, but you both need to sort this out away from here." Dr. Smith took the opportunity to speak up. "I'm going to ask all visitors to leave. The mother and baby need postnatal care now." Ryan gently kissed Sarah's forehead. "I'll be back later, okay?" "Okay." Jake approached the bed, ignoring Ryan's piercing glare. "Sarah, we need to talk about child support, visitation, those things." "Later, Jake. Not now." The two men left the room together, the animosity between them palpable. In the hallway, Jake turned to Ryan with a mocking smile. "Look at that. The rich guy fell for the nurse and the baby that isn't his." "Watch what you say." "Or what? Are you going to sue me?" Jake laughed. "Relax, man." "I'm not going to ruin your happy family fantasy. I just want to make sure I'm remembered when you guys are enjoying the good life." Ryan glared at him in disgust. "You're talking about money. I'm talking about reality. Sarah is a good woman, the baby is beautiful, but I have my rights, and you have your financial obligations now that you've decided to play the role of the stepfather." The implication was clear. Jake had returned not out of paternal love, but because he saw a financial opportunity. "How much?" Ryan asked directly. "What do you mean? How much do you want to? Sign away your parental rights and disappear from their lives." Jake smiled as if he had won the lottery. "Now you're speaking my language. How much?" 50,000. "Done. But you disappear today and never come back." "Done." Ryan took his phone out of his pocket and made a call. "Roberto, I need you at St. Mary's Hospital now. Bring the parental rights waiver papers." "Yes, the standard forms, and a check." Jake laughed again. "Man, you're smarter than I thought." And you're more disgusting than I imagined. An hour later, Jake had signed all the necessary papers, received the check, and disappeared from Sarah and the baby's lives forever. Ryan went back to the room where Sarah was resting, Emily sleeping peacefully in his arms. "Where's Jake?" she asked when she saw him enter. "He left." "Forever?" Ryan hesitated. Telling Sarah about the financial agreement might make her feel like he was trying to buy a family, that he was solving her problems with money instead of letting her handle them on her own. He realized he wasn't ready to be a father, he finally said. It wasn't exactly a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth. Sarah studied him for a moment, as if she knew there was more to the story, but she was too exhausted to investigate. "Better this way," she said softly. "She doesn't need a father who doesn't truly want her." "She has someone who wants her," Ryan said, moving closer to the bed. "She has you, she has Emily, and she has me, if you let me." Sarah looked at him, at the man who had held her hand during labor, who had whispered words of encouragement when she needed it most, who was offering his heart without guarantees that she wouldn't break it again. "Ryan, I know it's complicated. I know you have reasons not to trust me, but Sarah, what I felt in that delivery room, when she was born, that was real, more real than anything I've ever felt in my life. What if you change your mind? What if your family pressures you again? What if I don't change my mind? What if I fight against my family? What if this time I choose you instead of taking the easy way out?" Sarah looked at the baby in her arms, then at Ryan. There was fear in her eyes, but there was also something more. Hope, perhaps, or the memory of the love that had existed between them. "Do you want to hold her?" she finally asked. Ryan extended his arms, and Sarah carefully transferred the baby to him. Emily opened her dark little eyes and seemed to study his face with serious curiosity. "Hi, little one," he whispered. "I promise I'll take care of you, and your mommy, and your big sister, if you let me." The baby yawned and closed her eyes again, seemingly satisfied with the promises she had heard, and in that moment, in the silence of the hospital room, with the morning sun streaming through the windows, Sarah made a decision that would change everything for them. "Okay," she said softly. "Let's try." Really. But Ryan." "Yes?" "This time, if you leave, I won't be here when you decide to come back." "I'm not leaving." "You better not." Ryan smiled, still holding the baby. He leaned down to kiss the forehead of the baby. For the first time in 6 years, he believed that he might actually have a real chance to fix what he had broken, and this time he wasn't going to waste that chance. The first week at home with Emily was a whirlwind of sleepless nights, dirty diapers, and a constant adjustment to the new routine. Emily had taken maternity leave, but she still felt exhausted by the constant demands of a premature newborn who needed to be fed every 2 hours. Ryan had become a constant presence in the small apartment on the east side. He arrived every morning with coffee from Joe's bakery, spent the day helping with whatever he could, and only left after Emily was asleep. It was as if he had moved in without officially moving in. "Mummy, can Ryan stay for dinner tonight?" Emily asked on Thursday afternoon while doing her math homework at the kitchen table. Emily was sleeping on the couch, nestled between the cushions that Ryan had brought to make the space more comfortable for the baby. "Sure, if he wants to," Emily replied, preparing the bottle with the special formula that the pediatrician had recommended. The baby still struggled to gain weight, being premature, and needed a supplement in addition to breast milk. "I always want to," Ryan said from the doorway, arriving home from work. With his shirt sleeves rolled up and a shopping bag in hand, "I brought ingredients to make that risotto you liked." Emily stopped stirring the formula and looked at him. "You remember the risotto?" "I remember a lot of things." There was something in his voice that made Emily feel butterflies in her stomach, a sensation she hadn't felt in a long time. Ryan had changed in the past few weeks. He was more present, more attentive, more domestic. It was strange to see him changing diapers with the same competence he commanded business meetings. "Can I help?" he offered, noticing that she looked tired. "Can you grab Emily? She's going to wake up hungry in about 5 minutes." Ryan walked over to the couch and carefully picked up the baby. Emily opened her dark little eyes and looked at him with that peculiar seriousness she had shown since birth, as if she were always assessing the world around her. "Hi, princess," he murmured, gently rocking her. Emily watched their interaction, feeling something dangerous forming in her chest. It was too easy to imagine a life like this, with Ryan there every night sharing the responsibilities and joys of motherhood. Too dangerous to get used to the idea of not being alone. Ryan's phone rang, interrupting the moment. He glanced at the screen and frowned. "Is it important?" Emily asked. "It's my mom." He hesitated. "Can I take it quickly?" "Sure." Ryan handed the baby back to Emily and stepped out to the small laundry area to take the call. Even with the door closed, Emily could hear the tense tone of the conversation. "No, Mom, I'm not going to. That's none of your business. I already told you no." Emily looked up from her homework. "He sounds angry." "Sometimes adults disagree about important things," Emily explained, trying to keep her voice neutral. Ryan returned 15 minutes later, his face tense and shoulders rigid with stress. "Are you okay?" Emily asked. "Just family matters." He forced a smile. "Nothing that can't wait." But Emily knew Ryan well enough to know when he was lying. There was something in his eyes that worried her, a tension that hadn't been there the week before. Dinner was nice, with Ryan preparing the risotto with the competence of someone who had learned to cook during the years he lived alone. Emily talked about her science project. At school, Emily breastfed the baby at the table, and for a few moments everything felt perfectly normal and domestic. But the tension remained in Ryan's shoulders, and Emily noticed he was checking his phone more often than usual. After Emily went to bed, they sat on the small couch, with the baby sleeping between them, the apartment silent except for the sound of rain starting to patter against the window. "Ryan," Emily finally said, "what's going on?" "What do you mean?" "You've been acting strange since you took that call. Tense, distracted." She studied him. "Is it about us?" Ryan took a deep breath, as if he were carrying a weight he could no longer bear alone. "My family is pressuring me to stop coming here." "Oh." Emily felt her stomach drop, even knowing this conversation would come eventually. And I said no." "And they accepted that?" Ryan laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "They gave me a week to reconsider. Tomorrow is the deadline." "What happens if you don't reconsider?" "They might take me out of the company presidency." Emily felt as if she had been slapped. "Ryan, you can't lose your job because of us." "It's not because of you. It's for me, for the choice I'm making." "Which is the same thing." "It's not, Emily. It's about what I want for my life, about the kind of man I want to be." Emily stood up from the couch, handing the baby to him, and began to pace the small living space. "Ryan, you built this company. It's your life. It was my life, before I found you guys again. And what if you regret it? What if in a few years you look back and realize you threw it all away?" Ryan stood up too, still holding the baby. "And what if I don't regret it? What if in a few years I look back and realize I finally made the right choice?" "Ryan, Emily, I spent 6 years building an empire to prove I was worthy of you, but what I discovered is that none of it matters if you're not here to share it." "That's very romantic, but it's also completely unrealistic." Her voice rose, making the baby stir restlessly. "You have responsibilities. employees who depend on you, a lifetime invested in this company. And I have you too. For now. But what if we don't work out? What if you find out that domestic life isn't what you really want? What if I'm not enough to make up for everything you've lost? Sarah's insecurities were spilling out. All the fears she had tried to keep buried since he returned to their lives. Ryan placed Emily in the portable crib they had set up in the living room and approached her. "Sarah, look at me." She stopped pacing and faced him, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "I'm not choosing you over the company. I'm choosing a real life over an empty one. I'm choosing love over obligation. But what if love isn't enough? What if the bills can't be paid with love? What if—" Ryan interrupted her, cupping her face in his hands. "What if it is? What if this time I can prove that you are more important than anything else?" "How?" "By marrying you." The words came out simple, direct, without romantic embellishments or elaborate preparation. Sarah stared at him, speechless. "What?" "Marry me, Sarah. Officially, legally, for the whole world to see that I chose you." "Ryan, are you crazy? We just got back together. A few weeks ago we have 2 kids. Your family hates you. And I love you. I love Emily. I love little Emily." He pulled her closer. "I love the life we've built in these last few weeks. I love waking up knowing I'll see you. I love sharing worries and joys with you." Sarah felt tears streaming down her face. "Ryan, you don't understand. I can't be the reason you lose everything. You wouldn't be the reason. You would be the solution." "What do you mean?" Ryan took a deep breath, as if preparing for a leap into the dark. "A week ago, I transferred all my company shares into a trust fund in the girls' names." Sarah recoiled as if she had been shocked. "You did what?" "If my family removes me from the presidency, they will still have financial security. If the company fails, they will be protected. If I die, they will inherit everything." "Ryan, you can't do that. They aren't your daughters." "They are." The response came firm, without hesitation. "Biologically, maybe not. But in my heart, they are my daughters, and you are my family." Sarah stepped away from him, her hands trembling. "This is madness. This is too much." "It's love, Sarah. It's what people who love each other do for one another. It's obsession. It's you trying to buy a family because you feel guilty for what happened 6 years ago." Her words were like daggers, and Sarah saw they hit their mark. Ryan paled. "Do you really believe that?" Sarah looked at him, at the man who had held her hand during labor, who changed diapers at 3 in the morning, who had transformed their lives in just a few weeks, and she realized she no longer knew what to believe. "I don't know, Ryan. I don't know anything anymore." Silence stretched between them, filled only by the sound of rain tapping against the window and the soft breathing of little Emily sleeping. "Sarah," Ryan finally said, his voice low, "what do I need to do for you to believe this is real? I need time to think, to process all of this." "How much time?" "I don't know. Maybe you should resolve your family issues first, before making decisions about us." Ryan stared at her for a long moment, and Sarah saw the pain passing through his eyes. "You're sending me away. I'm asking you to be sure of what you want before throwing your life away." "My life wouldn't be thrown away if it were with you." "And what if it were? What if in a few months you realized you made a terrible mistake?" Ryan grabbed the coat that was hanging on the kitchen chair and headed for the door. On the threshold, he turned to her one last time. "Sarah, I understand your fears. I understand why you don't trust me completely. But one thing I can guarantee, no matter what happens with my family or the company, I will not abandon you. Never again." "Ryan, if you need anything, call me. I'll be here in 15 minutes. After he left, Sarah stood in the living room, listening to his footsteps echoing down the stairs, the sound of the car starting, the silence that remained. Emily woke up and began to cry, as if sensing the tension in the air. Sarah picked her up and sat on the sofa, nursing her while tears silently streamed down her face. She had chosen self-protection over vulnerability, security over risk. But for the first time in her life, she wasn't sure if she had made the right choice. The next morning, when she opened the curtains, Sarah saw an envelope under the door. Inside was a key and a handwritten note in Ryan's familiar handwriting. Sarah, regardless of what happens between us, I want you to know that you will always have a safe place to live with the girls. Apartment 82B in this same building is paid off in your name. Use it if you need to, or don't use it if you don't want to, but know that it's there, always. With love, Ryan. Sarah held the key in her palm, feeling the cold metal weight against her skin, and for the first time she allowed herself to cry for the possibility of having lost the love of her life again. But this time, by her own choice. 2 weeks passed in a tense silence that seemed to echo through the halls of the small apartment. Sarah had returned to the routine of caring for little Emily alone, waking up each 2 hours for nighttime feedings, dealing with the baby's colic and Emily's adjustment to the presence of her younger sister. The absence of Ryan felt like an open wound she tried to ignore, but it throbbed constantly. Emily asked about him every day. Why doesn't Ryan come for dinner with us anymore? Or doesn't he like Emily anymore? The innocent questions from the girl were like daggers to Sarah's heart, constantly reminding her of the decision she had made. On Thursday morning, Sarah was preparing Emily's bottle when her phone rang. It was Claudia, her colleague from the hospital. Sarah? Are you watching the news? What news? I'm on leave, remember. I barely have time to shower, let alone watch TV. Turn on the news channel right now. It's about Ryan. Sarah felt her stomach drop. With Emily in her arms, she turned on the TV and switched to the news channel. The headline on the screen made her stop breathing. Heir to Mendoza, Tech loses control of family business. The reporter was speaking in front of the commercial building on Wall Street that Sarah recognized from the few times she had visited Ryan's office during their marriage. In a surprising decision, the board of Mendoza Tech Solutions voted to remove Ryan Mendoza from the presidency of the company. Sources close to the family indicate that the decision was motivated by strategic differences and personal issues affecting business performance. Sarah turned off the TV, her hands trembling. Ryan had lost the company he had built, which was his life, his identity, and she knew it was because of her, because of the choice he had made to stay with them. "Mommy, are you okay?" Emily asked from the kitchen table, where she was having coffee before going to school. "You look pale." "I'm fine, sweetie, just some news that worried me." But Sarah was not fine. She was devastated, guilty, confused. Ryan had lost everything just as she had feared. And where was she when this happened? Sending him away, doubting his feelings, choosing fear over love. The phone rang again. This time it was an unknown number. "Hello? Sarah, it's Patricia Smith, Ryan's ex-fiancée." Sarah felt the blood run cold in her veins. "What do you want?" "To talk to you, in person. It's about Ryan and what happened with the company." "I have nothing to discuss with you." "You do, especially if you care about his future." The subtle threat in Patricia's voice was unmistakable. Sarah looked at Emily sleeping in her arms, then at Emily finishing her morning coffee. "Where?" "Corner Cafe on Main Street. Today at 2 in the afternoon. Come alone." The call ended before Sarah could respond. She stared at the phone, feeling like she was about to enter dangerous territory. At 2 in the afternoon, Sarah was sitting at a table in the back of the cafe, Emily sleeping in the stroller beside her. She had dropped Emily off at school and arranged for the neighbor, Mrs. Smith, to watch the baby for a few hours if needed. Patricia arrived, promptly gliding through the cafe door like a vision in shades of beige and gold. She wore an expensive linen suit, a designer handbag, and shoes that probably cost more than Sarah's rent. She was everything Sarah was not: elegant, wealthy, sophisticated. "Sarah!" Patricia sat in the opposite chair with the grace of a model. "Thank you for coming." "What do you want?" Patricia smiled, a cold smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Always straight to the point. Ryan mentioned that about you." "Does he talk about me with you?" "He did, before you destroyed his life." His words were like a slap. Sarah straightened in her chair. "I didn't destroy anything." "No? Then explain to me why a smart and successful man like Ryan lost everything for a divorced nurse with 2 kids from different fathers." The casual cruelty of Patricia's words was calculated to hurt, and Sarah felt anger rising in waves. "Mind your own business. Ryan's life is my life. It always has been, and it always will be." Patricia leaned forward. "You may have temporarily won him over with your vulnerable situation, but men like Ryan always return to where they belong." "And where is that?" "With people of the same social standing, with women who understand the responsibilities that come with a position like his." Sarah laughed, a bitter sound. "Responsibilities like lying, manipulating, and pitting people against each other? Responsibilities like building and maintaining a family legacy, something you could never understand coming from where you do. Where I come from taught me values that you apparently never learned, like loyalty, honesty, and unconditional love." Patricia smiled again. "Unconditional love? Is that why you pushed him away when he needed you the most?" The question hit its mark, and Sarah felt her face burn. "How do you know about that?" "Because I know Ryan better than anyone. I know he offered you everything: marriage, financial security, a better life for your daughters. And I know you rejected him." "I didn't reject him. I asked for time to think." "You rejected him out of fear. Fear of not being good enough, fear of him regretting it, fear of being abandoned again." Patricia studied Sarah with calculating eyes. "And you were right to be afraid." "What does that mean?" "It means Ryan is lost now, without the company, without direction, without a future. And you know what lost men do? They make irrational decisions, like throwing everything away for a romantic fantasy." Sarah felt nausea rising. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to leave his life, for good." "And why would I do that?" Patricia opened her handbag and pulled out a thick envelope. "Because I will compensate you generously for it." Sarah looked at the envelope as if it were a snake. "Are you trying to buy me?" "I'm offering a solution that benefits everyone. You get financial security for your daughters. Ryan goes back to a life that makes sense, and I get the man I love back." "How much?" $200,000, plus a paid-off house in a better neighborhood and private education for the girls until college. It was more money than Sarah would earn in years of work. It was security for the girls, opportunities she could never offer on her own, a better future for all of them. It was also the definitive proof that she would never be accepted in Ryan's world. "And what if I say no?" "Then you'll watch Ryan destroy what's left of his life over an obsession that will end up destroying both of you too." Patricia leaned forward. "Sarah, be realistic. You come from different worlds. This will never work." "It worked once." "For how long?" 2 years, until you can't handle the pressure anymore." Patricia's words echoed Sarah's deepest fears. What if she was right? What if Ryan really regretted the choice he made? What if, in the end, he blamed her for losing everything? "I need to think," Sarah finally said. You have until tomorrow at 5 p.m. After that, the offer is off the table and things get more complicated." "What kind of complicated?" Patricia smiled, but there was something dangerous in her eyes. The kind that involves lawsuits, questioning your ability to care for 2 children alone, investigations into your financial situation, and interesting discoveries about how you got a paid-off apartment from a millionaire ex-husband. The threat was clear. Sarah felt her heart racing. "You wouldn't do that." "I would do anything to protect Ryan from himself and from you." Patricia stood up, leaving the envelope on the table. "Think carefully, Sarah. Think about what's best for your daughters and for Ryan." After she left, Sarah was alone in the cafe, staring at the envelope as if it were a bomb about to explode. Emily woke up and started crying, and Sarah picked her up, trying to soothe her while her own mind was a whirlwind of confusion. $200,000, a house, education for the girls, but also the confirmation that she would never be accepted in Ryan's world, that she would always be seen as the intruder who didn't deserve to be there. Sarah tucked the envelope into her bag and left the cafe, feeling like she was carrying not just a baby, but the weight of a decision that would change all their lives. When she got home, Emily had already returned from school and was doing homework at the kitchen table. "Mom, you seem off today," the girl observed, looking at her with that keen perception she always had. "I'm just tired, sweetheart." "Is it about Ryan? Mrs. Smith told me he lost his job." Sarah sat down in the chair next to her daughter. "How would you feel if we moved from here?" "Where to?" "To a bigger house in a better neighborhood, where you could go to a private school." Emily frowned. "But how? We don't have money for that." "What if we did? Where would that money come from?" It was a simple question, but it carried an immense weight. Sarah looked at her daughter, smart, perceptive, deserving of all the opportunities that Patricia's money could offer. "Issa, do you like Ryan?" "I love Ryan. He's nice to me. He makes you smile. And he takes care of Emily like she's his own daughter." Emily stopped writing. "Why? Is he coming back?" "I don't know, sweetheart. It's complicated." "Why do adults always complicate simple things?" Her daughter's question echoed in Sarah's mind for the rest of the night. Why was she complicating something that could be simple? Yes, Ryan had lost the company. Yes, they came from different worlds. But he had chosen her. He had chosen the girls. He had proven that their love was more important than anything else. And she had sent him away. That night, after the children were asleep, Sarah sat in the living room with Patricia's envelope in her hands. Inside was not just the money, but elaborate contracts, detailed proposals for a future that did not include Ryan. A secure but empty future. She thought about the conversation with Emily, how the girl's eyes lit up when she talked about Ryan. She thought about Emily, who slept more soundly when she was in his arms. She thought about herself, how she felt whole for the first time in years when they were together. And then she thought about the expression on Ryan's face when she had sent him away, the pain in his eyes, how he had left without a fight. Sarah picked up the phone and dialed his number. He answered on the first ring. "Sarah, is something wrong?" "Ryan, we need to talk." "Now?" "Now. I'm on my way." 15 minutes later, Ryan was at the door of the apartment. He looked exhausted, with deep, dark circles under his eyes and unshaven. His clothes were wrinkled, as if he hadn't slept properly in days. "Come in," she said softly. They sat on the sofa, the same place where they had argued 2 weeks ago. Sarah held the envelope in her hands, trying to find the courage to speak. "I heard about the company," she finally said. "Oh." Ryan ran a hand through his hair. "News travels fast." "I'm sorry. Don't be. It was my choice. It was my fault." "It wasn't, Sarah. It was the consequence of a decision I made with my eyes wide open." "And do you regret it?" Ryan looked her directly in the eyes. Regret choosing you and the girls? Never. Regret how I handled the situation? Maybe. Sarah took a deep breath and extended the envelope to him. Patricia approached me today. Ryan looked at the envelope and paled. What is this? An offer. $200,000, a house, education for the girls, in exchange for me leaving your life. The silence that followed was heavy with tension. Ryan took the envelope and opened it, quickly reading the documents inside. His expression grew darker with each line. "And you're considering it?" he finally asked. "I was. And now?" Sarah stood up from the sofa and walked to the window, looking out at the dark street where some children were still playing despite the hour. "Now I realize I'm an idiot." "What do you mean?" "Ryan, 2 weeks ago I sent you away because I was afraid you would regret choosing us. Today I found out that you lost everything because of us and still didn't regret it. And?" Sarah turned to face him. "And I realize that the only regret I will have in life is not fighting for us when I had the chance." Ryan slowly stood up, as if he didn't want to break the moment with abrupt movements. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying the answer is yes." "Yes to what?" "To marrying you, to building a life together, to facing your family, society, and anything else that comes our way." Sarah felt tears running down her face. "I'm saying I love you, Ryan. I always have. And I'm sorry it took me so long to have the courage to admit it." Ryan crossed the room in 3 steps and took her in his arms, kissing her as if she were the air he needed to breathe. "Are you sure?" he murmured against her lips. "Because I can't lose you again." "Are you sure you want a stubborn woman, 2 noisy kids, and a complicated life?" "I'm sure I want you. Everything else is detail." They kissed again, and for the first time in weeks, Sarah felt like she was where she belonged. But on the kitchen table, Patricia's envelope remained open, reminding them that the fight was just beginning. Monday arrived with a suffocating heat that made the asphalt of New York shimmer like water. Sarah woke up with Ryan by her side for the first time in 2 weeks, and for a moment she allowed herself to just watch him sleep. His features relaxed, deep breathing, the way he held her hand even while unconscious. He had spent the night on the sofa, insisting it wasn't appropriate to sleep in her room with the kids in the house. Sarah found his concern both old-fashioned and endearing at the same time. The cry of Emily pulled her from her daydream. It was the 6 o'clock feeding, punctual as a clock. Sarah carefully got up so as not to wake Ryan and went to fetch the baby from the portable crib. "Good morning, Princess," she whispered softly, picking her daughter up. "Daddy is sleeping." The word came out naturally without conscious thought. Daddy. Ryan would officially be the girl's stepfather, but in his heart, and apparently in hers too, he was already much more than that. Sarah was preparing the bottle when Emily appeared in the kitchen, still in her pajamas, her hair tousled in all directions. "Did Ryan sleep here?" the girl asked, trying to hide a smile. "He slept on the sofa," Sarah clarified quickly. "But is he going to live here now?" It was a complicated question. They had decided to get married, but they hadn't discussed the practical details. Sarah's apartment was too small for all of them, but she was afraid of moving into his world. "We'll talk about it today," Sarah replied diplomatically. "I hope so. That way he can help me with math every day." Ryan appeared in the kitchen at that moment, his shirt wrinkled and hair tousled. "Does someone need help with math?" "I do." Emily ran to hug him. "Good morning, Ryan." "Good morning, Princess." He kissed the top of her head and approached Sarah, kissing her on the cheek as she finished preparing the bottle. "Good morning to you both." The domesticity of the moment felt almost surreal. Sarah felt like she was living in a bubble of happiness that could burst at any moment. After breakfast, with Ryan having gone out to get fresh bread from Joe, Sarah's phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Hello?" "Sarah Johnson." The voice was formal, official. "Yes." "This is Dr. Smith from Child Protective Services. We received an anonymous report regarding the living conditions and care of your daughters. We need to conduct a home visit." Sarah felt her blood run cold. "What kind of report?" "Allegations of neglect, unstable financial situation, presence of strange men in the residence where minors are present." The man's voice was neutral, professional. "It's standard procedure for us to investigate." "When?" "This afternoon at 3 o'clock. We'll be there." The call ended before Sarah could ask more questions. She stood in the kitchen, the phone in her hand, feeling panic rising in her throat. Patricia. It had to be her, the threat of complications she had mentioned at the cafe. Ryan returned at that moment, carrying warm bread and coffee. He found Sarah pale and trembling. "What happened?" Sarah told him about the call, watching Ryan's expression shift from concern to absolute anger. "She can't do this," he said, his voice dangerously low. "Apparently, she can, and she did." Ryan grabbed the phone and dialed a number. "Dr. Smith, it's Ryan Mendoza. I need you here now." "No, it's a family emergency." "Yes, bring everything." "Who was that?" Sarah asked when he hung up. "My lawyer. If Patricia wants war, she's going to get it." "Ryan, no. This will only make things worse. Child Protective Services will see that you're using influence to—" "Sarah." He held her shoulders. "Listen. I'm not going to let anyone question your ability as a mother or threaten the safety of the girls. Never." At 2:30 in the afternoon, the apartment was spotless. Emily was at school. The other Emily was sleeping peacefully in the crib, and Sarah had tidied up everything twice out of pure nervousness. Ryan had gone out to meet the lawyer, promising to return before. Dr. Smith arrived on time, accompanied by a social worker named Dr. Smith. They were serious professionals who immediately began asking questions about the children's routine, the conditions of the apartment, and Sarah's financial situation. "The report mentions that there is a constant presence of a man who is not related to the children," said Dr. Smith, taking notes on a clipboard. "Mr. Johnson is my fiancé," Sarah replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "How long have you been together?" Sarah hesitated. "We recently got back together." "And does he sleep here?" "No, not regularly, but sometimes." "On the sofa?" "Once." The questions continued, each one more invasive than the last. They wanted to know about Sarah's finances, about Emily's father, about Ryan's presence in their lives. It was when they were inspecting the children's room that Ryan arrived, accompanied by a man in a suit whom Sarah recognized as Mr. Richards, the Johnson family's lawyer. "Good afternoon," Ryan greeted politely. "I'm Ryan Johnson, fiancé of Mrs. Johnson." Dr. Smith looked him up and down. "Sir, this is an official assessment. We will ask you to wait outside. With all due respect, Doctor, as the future stepfather of the children, I believe I have the right to be part of this process." "Ryan, no," Sarah whispered, but he ignored her. Mr. Richards stepped forward. "Doctors, my name is Richard Richards, attorney. I would like to clarify that this report was made for personal reasons and lacks factual basis." Dr. Smith looked at him suspiciously. "How do you know about the nature of the report?" "Because we know the person who made it, and we have evidence that this is an attempt at coercion." Mr. Richards opened a folder and pulled out some documents. Sarah saw that they were screenshots of text messages, photographs, and other papers she couldn't identify. "What are these documents?" Dr. Smith asked. "Evidence that Ms. Patricia Smith offered a bribe to Mrs. Johnson in exchange for her to distance herself from Mr. Johnson, and when the proposal was rejected, she threatened to use official channels to intimidate her." Sarah looked at Ryan in surprise. "How did you get this?" "Private investigators have their methods," he replied quietly. Dr. Smith's expression had changed. He studied the documents for a few minutes, then looked at Ryan and Sarah. If this is true, we are dealing with a very serious situation. Making false reports to Child Protective Services is a crime. It's true, Sarah said. She offered me $200,000 to stay away from Ryan. I have recordings of the conversations. Dr. Smith closed the clipboard. We will need all this evidence for our report, but based on the preliminary assessment we conducted today, I see no issues regarding the children's care. After they left, Sarah sat heavily on the sofa, emotionally exhausted. How did you get this evidence? She asked Ryan. I hired private investigators. As soon as you told me about Patricia's proposal, they recorded conversations she had with third parties where she admits to making the false report. Is that legal? Mr. Richards answered for him. In cases of extortion and coercion, yes. Moreover, we have witnesses that she made explicit threats against you and the children. Sarah looked between the two men, Ryan determined and protective, the lawyer efficient and relentless, and felt a mix of gratitude and discomfort. Ryan, I don't want a legal war. It's not a war, Sarah. It's self-defense. But this will expose our private life. It will create more drama. Sarah. Ryan sat next to her. Patricia won't stop. If we don't act now, she will continue trying to separate us, trying to hurt you and the girls. And what if she finds out about this and does something worse? Mr. Richards spoke up. Mrs. Johnson, with the evidence we have, we can obtain a restraining order against her. If she approaches you again, she will be arrested. But that also means your life will turn into a legal process. Your family will know everything. It will be in the newspapers. Ryan took her hands. Sarah, my family already knows everything. They were the ones who supported Patricia in this strategy. The revelation hit her like a slap. Your family is involved in this. My mother, my brothers. They think they are saving me from a mistake. Ryan took a deep breath. Last night I had a conversation with them. I made it clear that if they tried to hurt you again, I would cut all family ties. And they accepted that? They disowned me. Sarah felt the world spinning. What? Officially, I am no longer part of the Johnson family. I have no right to inheritance, no access to family businesses. I am not welcome in the family. Home. Ryan. Sarah felt tears burning in her eyes. For our sake, you lost the company, the family, everything. I haven't lost everything. I gained you. But what if you regret it? What if in a few years you miss the life you had? Ryan looked directly into her eyes. Sarah, do you want to know the moment I was absolutely sure I made the right choice? When? It was when Emily was born and you said our daughter instead of my daughter. That's when I realized you saw me as their father, not just as a man trying to buy a family. Ryan, and do you know when I was sure that I love you more than anything in the world? When? It was when you rejected $200,000 to be with me. When you chose love over financial security. Sarah began to cry. Tears of relief, of love, of hope, finally allowed. I love you too. So much that sometimes it hurts. They kissed, and for the first time since they had reunited, Sarah felt she truly believed that everything would be all right. Mr. Richards cleared his throat discreetly. Sorry to interrupt, but we need to discuss the next steps. What's the next step? Sarah asked. We're going to sue Patricia Smith for coercion, extortion, and false accusation, and we will obtain restraining orders against her and any member of the Johnson family who tries to approach you. And will that work? It will work, Ryan said with determination. And Sarah, yes? We're getting married at the end of the month, officially, so that no one can question our family again. Sarah smiled through her tears. Is that a proposal or an order? It's a promise. That night, after Emily went to sleep and Mari was resting, Ryan and Sarah sat on the small balcony of the apartment, looking at the city lights stretching to the horizon. "Are you scared?" Sarah asked. "Of what?" "Of all this. The marriage, the responsibilities, raising two girls who aren't biologically yours." Ryan thought for a moment. "I'm afraid of not being the father they deserve. I'm afraid I won't be able to give you everything you need. But afraid of loving you? Never. And I'm afraid you'll realize it's too much responsibility and decide it's not worth it." "Sarah, look at me." She turned to face him. "I chose you over the company. I chose you over my family. I chose you over an easy and predictable life. Do you really think I would do all this if I wasn't absolutely sure?" "No." "Then stop being afraid. We're going to be fine because we already are. The rest are just details we'll figure out together." Sarah nestled in his arms, feeling for the first time in years that she was truly home. And in the distance, fireworks from some celebration lit up the night sky, as if the city itself was celebrating their new beginning. 3 months later, Central Park was painted with the golden hues of autumn when Sarah woke up on the Saturday morning of May 23rd. Through the bedroom window, she could see the yellow trees in full bloom, creating a perfect frame for the day she had dreamed of for months. Ryan was already up. She could hear his low voice talking to someone on the phone in the living room, probably coordinating the last details of the ceremony. Mari, now 4.5 months old, was peacefully sleeping in the crib next to the bed, her dark hair forming small curls that framed her angelic face. It was their wedding day. Sarah stretched in bed, allowing herself a few moments of pure happiness before the day's rush began. The last 3 months had been an emotional roller coaster. Lawsuits against Patricia, who had been convicted of false accusation and was doing community service, adapting to the new financial life after Ryan lost the company, moving to the larger apartment he had bought in a middle-class condominium in Brooklyn. It wasn't luxurious like the life Ryan had known, but it was theirs, completely theirs. "Mom!" Emily burst into the room like a whirlwind of energy, already dressed in the navy dress they had chosen for the ceremony. "Ryan is as nervous as a cat in a room full of rocking chairs." Sarah laughed at the expression the girl had clearly learned from Mrs. Smith, the neighbor who had become a motherly figure to all of them. "And how do you know he's nervous?" "Because he's checked the ring 16 times and is rearranging the flowers that arrived, even though they are perfect." 16 times? "I counted while having breakfast." Sarah shook her head, smiling. Ryan had insisted on a small and intimate ceremony. Just the 4 of them, Mrs. Smith, who would be the witness, the officiant, and a few close friends. No pomp, no ostentation, just family. "Issa, can you get Mari for me? I need to get ready." Emily picked up her little sister with the care she had developed over the past few months. Now 13, she had transformed into a protective and caring older sister, taking on responsibilities with a maturity that sometimes made Sarah proud and worried at the same time. "Mom," Emily said as Sarah was choosing her outfit, "can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetheart. After you guys get married, can I call Ryan Dad?" The question caught Sarah completely off guard. Emily had started referring to Ryan as Dad to her friends at school, but she had never asked if she could do that at home. "Do you want to call him Dad?" "He takes care of us like a dad. He helps me with homework, comes to school meetings, worries when I'm sick." Emily paused. "And I think he likes it when I call him Dad without realizing it." Sarah felt tears burning behind her eyes. "Talk to him about it today." "Okay. Okay." An hour later, Sarah was dressed in a simple cream-colored dress she had bought at a store downtown. Nothing elaborate, but elegant and comfortable. Ryan had insisted they didn't need to spend a fortune on clothes they would only wear once. When she left the room, she found Ryan in the living room, dressed in a simple but well-tailored navy suit. He was adjusting his tie in the mirror, and Sarah had to admit she had never seen him look more handsome. "How do I look?" she asked. Ryan turned and stopped, his mouth slightly open. "You look perfect. Isn't it too simple?" "It's exactly perfect." He stepped closer and kissed her gently, being careful not to mess up the makeup she had applied with care. "Ready?" he asked. "More than ready?" The ceremony would take place in an outdoor venue in the park itself, near the lake, where Ryan had secured a special permit through a friend who worked at the city hall. There was no elaborate altar or extravagant decoration, just a simple pergola covered with white and yellow flowers, a few chairs for the guests, and the breathtaking view of the lake with ducks swimming peacefully. Mrs. Smith was already there when they arrived, radiant in a floral dress she had bought especially for the occasion. Claudia, Marina's hospital colleague, was with her husband and their 2 children. Joe, from the bakery, had closed the shop early to be present, wearing a suit that smelled slightly of yeast and flour. Mr. Richards, the lawyer who had become an unexpected friend during the months of the process against Patricia, was there with his wife, some colleagues from the hospital, Emily's teacher, the people who truly mattered in their lives. There was no family of Ryan. He had kept his promise to cut all ties after the threats against Marina and the girls, but Marina knew he didn't miss them. He had found a better family. The officiant was a young and friendly man from the local parish who had insisted on just 2 premarital meetings and had been enchanted by their story. "Dearly beloved," he began, then corrected himself with a smile. "Forgive me, dear friends, we are here today to celebrate the love between Ryan and Marina and the official beginning of the family they have already built together with Emily and..." "Emily?" Marina looked at Ryan and saw tears in his eyes. He was holding Emily in his arms. She had insisted that the baby be part of the ceremony, while Emily stood beside them, holding a small bouquet of flowers she had arranged herself. "Ryan and Marina have chosen to write their own vows," the officiant continued. Ryan handed Emily to Mrs. Smith and turned to Marina, taking her hands in his. "Marina," he began, his voice slightly hoarse, "6 years ago I lost you because I didn't know how to fight for us, because I chose security over love, obligation over happiness. Today, in front of our daughters and the people we love, I promise that I will never make that choice again." He paused, taking a deep breath. "I promise to be the father that Emily and Emily deserve. Even if biology doesn't unite us, I promise to be the partner you deserve. Not perfect, but present. Not wealthy, but dedicated. I promise that when things get tough, and they will, I will be here, fighting for us, working for us, loving you unconditionally." Marina was crying now, not caring about her makeup. "And I promise that our home will always be a place where love matters more than money, where sincerity matters more than status, where being family matters more than anything else in the world." When it was her turn, Marina looked at the man she had chosen. Not the powerful CEO he had been, but the man who changed diapers at 3 a.m, who helped Emily with math, who had sacrificed everything for them. "Ryan, you taught me that love is not about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone who is willing to grow with you, to fight for you, to choose you every day." Her voice was trembling, but she continued. "You lost a company, but gained a family. Lost money, but gained purpose. And I promise that I will spend the rest of my life being worthy of that sacrifice." She looked at Emily, who was crying silently, then at Emily in Mrs. Smith's arms. "I promise that we will raise our daughters knowing they were chosen by you, not out of obligation, but out of love. I promise that when they grow up, they will know that family is not about DNA. It is about choice, commitment, and unconditional love. And I promise that I will trust you, completely, even when my fear tries to convince me otherwise. When the officiant asked if they accepted each other as husband and wife, they both answered, "I do," with firm voices and huge smiles. "You may kiss," the officiant announced unnecessarily. The kiss was soft, full of promises and hope. When they pulled away, Emily shouted, "Finally!" making everyone laugh. Emily chose that moment to let out a high-pitched cry of joy, as if she were celebrating too. The party was simple, a barbecue in the park, with Joe taking care of the meat, Mrs. Smith overseeing the salads, and the children running on the lawn. Ryan had hired a guitarist who played soft Brazilian music as the sun set over the lake. Marina danced the first song in her husband's arms, "Husband," while Emily twirled around them with Emily in her arms. "You know what I was thinking?" Ryan whispered in her ear as they danced. "What?" "That maybe we should renew our vows in a few years, when the girls are older and can understand better." "Why would we wait a few years?" "Because I want to make sure we can prove that it worked, that it wasn't just a beautiful dream." Marina stepped back to look into his eyes. "Ryan Mendoza, do you still have doubts about us?" "Not doubts, but sometimes it feels too good to be true." "Then let me help you understand something." Marina leaned in and kissed him in the middle of the makeshift dance floor. "This, us four, this crazy and imperfect life we've built, this is real, it's ours, and it's forever." As if in agreement, Emily chose that moment to babble something that suspiciously sounded like "daddy," her first word. Ryan stopped dancing, eyes wide. "Did she say, 'Daddy'?" Emily confirmed, appearing beside them. "She said 'daddy,' and speaking of which," the girl took a deep breath. "Dad, can I officially call you Dad now?" Ryan bent down and hugged Emily tightly, then extended his arms to include Marina and Emily in the embrace. "You can call me whatever you want," he said, his voice choked, "as long as you let me be part of this family forever." "Forever is a short time," Marina murmured. And there, in the middle of Central Park, surrounded, through yellow ipe trees and the soft sound of music, they danced as a complete family for the first time. 6 months later, Ryan started a small tech consulting business that quickly grew due to his reputation and expertise. They weren't millionaires, but they had enough to live comfortably and provide the girls with the opportunities they deserved. Emily became one of the top students at her new school, where she proudly referred to Ryan as "my dad." Emily grew up as a cheerful and curious child who clearly adored the man who carried her on his shoulders. Every Sunday at the park, Sarah returned to work part-time, choosing to spend more time with the family. They bought a small but cozy house in Brooklyn, where Ryan set up a home office and where Emily took her first steps. Patricia never tried to reach out again. The Johnson family, according to rumors that occasionally reached them, had faced financial troubles after Ryan left the company. But those were stories from a past that no longer belonged to them. And on a December afternoon, when they were all on the porch of their new house, Ryan helping Emily with a science project, Sarah breastfeeding Emily, the smell of coffee brewing in the kitchen, Sarah realized she had found something she didn't know she was searching for. It wasn't the perfect life that appeared in movies. It was better than that. It was a real life, built with tough choices, mutual sacrifices, and unconditional love. It was a family formed not by chance or biology, but by a conscious decision to be together. It was the kind of love worth fighting for and worth keeping. And it was just the beginning.